what's up, everyone? Welcome to Normal America Show. Your host, Rob Noor. 2 streams today. No, just this one. I'm not streaming later today. I'm having a day, so I figured I'd come up here and stream early. So my plan was to stream probably a little later in the day, but plans have changed. I don't know how long this stream will go. I'll give you the gist of what's occurring right now. My mom needs help with some stuff around the house. It is requiring a pickup truck to be used. Unfortunately, the pickup truck that normally would be available that my father-in-law has is in the shop. So we're now relying on someone else's pickup truck who's repeatedly telling us the truck will be ready yesterday at a certain time. Oh, sorry, can't be there. Now the truck will be ready today at a certain time. Oh, sorry, now it can't be there. There's my brother telling me I'll probably be getting a phone call. So this stream may be very short. Originally, the plan was I was supposed to leave already to help with this stuff. And it looks like that was delayed. So check here. And it's crazy because it's not my brother's fault. It's not my mother's fault. It's really no one's fault. It's just a cacophony of events that all seems to occur at the same time. That means that a bunch of people have to just be in a holding pattern. Like, well, none of us could do anything until the ball gets rolling. And it's tough if you have stuff plan out a day then. Because it's like, well, we have a 7-hour patch where at a moment's notice you could get a call. But that's okay. Stuff like this happens. It's not like the end of the world. So I'm going to attempt to stream. That's the plan. We'll attempt to analyze some debates here this morning. If I have to end at short notice, I'm sure people will understand. But that's the game plan here. So I'm powered up, energized after last night's debate. So I hope you all enjoyed the content. If you haven't checked it out, there's some epic debates on my channel from the last 2 nights. We'll try to look at some of last night's debate if we have extra time here. I thought we'd start off looking at Ben Shapiro was on this. I don't even know what they call it. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude here. They call it Jubilee. It is one of the dumbest. Taking a call in from an old debate partner. Are you asking me if I would? No. I mean, I would, but anyways, back to the Jubilee thing. I had seen little clips, but I hadn't actually watched what goes on. It is so it's so dumb. I don't even know how to explain this. We'll show clips of it, but it's they got 25 people sitting around a circle, and then whoever the targeted person is, in this case it's Ben Shapiro, and they'll be like, Ben Shapiro's first statement is that DEI is of detriment to the United States. Bing! And then everybody sprints like they're playing musical chairs to this chair. And then they get to start talking, but each of the people in the audience have a red flag, and if a certain amount of people raise the red flag, oh, it's so stupid. It's so stupid. There's nothing wrong with the concept of a group of people discussing something with one person. Charlie Kirk does it all the time at college campuses. They just get in line and one by one ask questions. Fine. But the game show type format of it, and I mean, I don't know. There's probably some science behind why it gets more eyeballs on it to do something like that. But you can't help but feel like this is legitimately one of the cringiest things I've ever seen. It's just so dumb. I was listening to this a little in the car yesterday because Aftershock sent me, was like, hey, you should check this out. And I just was laughing. Me and my wife were laughing what is this? Are we watching, it looks like you're watching an episode of, Double Dare or something. It's just so dumb. I don't know. What can I say? I guess I do content that people might find cringe and stupid at times as well. So, I don't know. That's what's going on with the Jubilee. And I know people would ask me before, like, would you do something like that? It's like, I don't know. I certainly have no problem being the person in the middle with 25 people arguing against me. That's the stereotypical anytime I do a panel and it's me versus 8. So it might as well be me versus 25. I do not care as long as I get equal time to speak. Would I sit in the group of 25 and hopefully be one of the people that got to ask someone a question? Maybe that's potentially something I would do. But after seeing this, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I got to start like practicing my Dennis Rodman style elbows to box people out so I could get to the chair to talk. Like, what a joke. Maybe it would, you know what I want to see? Instead of college kids all sitting around jostling, playing musical chairs, fighting with each other to get this chair, let's put in a bunch of like old professors. How about that? Let's get Donald Trump in the center, and you have to be over 65 years old and be a professor. Let's see them jostling and knocking each other around. That would be entertaining. That I would turn into. Yeah. Ugh, what a joke. Anywho, that's the Jubilee. Now, it's a big, long video. What is it? It's 2 hours or whatever. We're not going to watch 2 hours. We're going to watch our chum IRI's performance. I'm really important. So I actually find I'm really important to be a likable person, but he's not a very good debater. So I had seen him post on X before yesterday when this video was posted, because apparently it was recorded a little while ago. And he was like, I think my debate performance there against Ben Shapiro was very good. And then once it came out, I saw the usual cast of characters. It's so funny. Every time you see these clips on X, like, say what you will about Ben Shapiro, he's a good debater. And so you'll see these clips of lefties on X like, look at this person. They crushed Shapiro. Whoa. Wow, that's it. That's a mic drop moment. Ben Shapiro, he ain't going to be doing debates anymore. He just got schooled by this random person. And then you watch the clip and you're like, this is a joke. There was no schooling. It was terrible. So, what's IRI? IRI is a streamer. His full pseudonym is I'm Really Important, so it's IRI for short. You may know him from being the white guy on the Offspring video, Pretty Fly for a White Guy. He has done poorly when he's debated me. He was on the last Hippy Dippy that I was on. He literally had nothing to say for 95% of the debate, and then waited to his closing statements and basically said that I was a pawn of Vladimir Putin, which is the argument he always tries to make with me because he can't argue anything of substance. At one point, after I'd schooled him one-on-one in several debates, he acknowledged to me privately and then publicly to his audience that he doesn't want to debate me anymore because, and I'm quoting, I'm not making this up, he likes to stay in his bubble. So good for him for reaching out and attempting to do some sort of debate, as limited as it is in this scenario, with Ben Shapiro. So suffice it to say, the left thinks that this was just an epic beatdown of Ben Shapiro by I'm Really Important. Now, anyone who knows the characters would immediately be suspect. Without me showing any of this clip, do you really think when we delve into this that you're going to be like, holy cow, I'm Really Important just schooled Ben Shapiro? Is that your gut feeling of what's about to happen? Or could it be that the same people that said Tim Walz won that debate against Kamala Harris are full of it once more? I wonder which it'll be. So let's jump in. I tried to include a little bit so you could see I'm Really Important running to the chair, which is hilarious. By the way, just perceptually, if you're in an audience, this is just something to say. Let me give you a little secret, a little trick of the trade here, right? You remember when I did this debate on the last debate I did on Wick's channel, and Brianna Wu was there, and it was a bunch of people basically from Progressive Victory PAC. And so it basically became a 5-on-1. And you could believe me or not, if you're not a fan of my show, you'll think I'm full of it, but you could go back and watch that debate. I was crushing them. 5-on-1. They didn't even really have an attempt. It was just Brianna Wu going, oh, Rob, here we go, fire hose of bullshit. That's it. They couldn't argue the actual substance of what was going on. So that's what happened. And it got so bad that the moderator, Wick, who's also paid by Progressive Victory PAC, basically jumped in and started debating me. Now, people will say things like this. Wow, it's really hard to debate like 5-on-1 and 6-on-1. And there are things that are challenging about it. For example, you have 5 people to fact check you and to sort of perceptually it looks like when 5 people are agreeing against 1 to an audience, it may look like that the 5 are correct, even if they aren't, and all of those things. And those things are true. But for me, I actually enjoy those debates immensely. It doesn't bother me. And perceptually, I think it's devastating for that side. Because what that looks like is, holy cow, it took 6 of these people to deal with him, including the moderator? Perceptually, if you're one of 25 debating against one person, it already shows a power imbalance, which is which is completely unfair, but that's just perceptually what it appears. However, it's even worse if the person's sitting there like this, sitting in the chair, and you're running like a jack-off, jostling to get to this chair. It makes you look like a goof. And it's not your fault. That's the way that this debate thing's set up. But what a joke. Could you see, like, serious people wanting a serious discussion? Could you see them doing this? Like, for example, could you see Mehdi Hassan sitting in this chair and being like, I think Hamas isn't that bad? And then someone like Douglas Murray, who debated Mehdi Hassan, could you see him, like, running up and throwing elbows with other professors? Of course not. They would be like, this is a joke. I'll debate you on an equal platform. I'm not going to play this stupid game. So I will say, to defend IRI a little here, it's just such it perceptually makes him look bad. I don't know. Give me a second here. So we'll do it. Again, I apologize. I may have to leave at a moment's notice, so hopefully we get through a lot of this, though. All right, here we go. Go, IRI! Woo! Let's see it again, shall we? There we go. IRI, watch that again. Yeah, let's start off. Oops. Here we go. You ready? Whoa! Yes! You did it, IRI. Look at the fist pump! He did it! Did you see that fist pump? Look at it again. Wait. Let's slow the speed a little more. You ready? IRI and Jubilee. Whoa! Look at that. Look at him out of the gate here. Did you see that, man? Look at that again. Okay. I like the fact he beats this lady with white hair. All right. He has a head start on the other lady there. Oh, this guy's close. He's close. All right. Now watch this. Watch the fist pump here. Watch it. Get him, IRI. Let's see. Watch that right hand. Kaboom! Fist pump. Yes. Well done, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, already. Oh, we didn't need the audio, but that's fine. We did it. Did you see that fist? One more time with the audio in slow motion, just in case people were running. Here we go. You ready? Let's do it. Look at him. Look at the focus right here. Do you see the focus of Look at him staring at the chair. Do you see this? That's intensity. That man's an athlete right there. Now look at some of his competitors. They seem to be too laxed. He's hands on his lap. Look at that footing position. It's like he's ready to bust out of the gate. You see this girl 2 people to the right of him there. Like, no way. That's too comfortable of a pose. You're never going to make it in time. Never. IRI is ready. He is like a viper, ready to pounce here. Look, he's staring at that chair. No, here we go. You ready? Watch him. Whoa! Look at that sprint, man. Do you see that arm motion? He's really getting it. Bam! Narrowly wins. Look at him. Yes. The little leg kick there. Perfect form. Looks over to Ben. And the fist pump. Yes, you did it, IRI. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. We got him, man. I could already see why the lefties are saying that he has dominated Shapiro in this debate. Shapiro's sitting there. Look at Shapiro's smile. He's smiling to cover up his fear. How could you debate an impressive athlete like this? How could you, man? Shapiro is scared shitless right now. I assure you. Oh, man. So, all right, let's get to the debate. We've had our fun at IRI's expense. In fairness, in total fairness to IRI, I get it. The platform's stupid. I just thought it was funny. The fist bump was funny. He was poised to go. All right, here we go.
Good to meet you. Kamala Harris supports the bipartisan border bill that was negotiated by conservative Senator James Lankford and supported by Mitch McConnell. Do you not support that bill? And
I do not support that bill.
So what is your solution then?
I mean, my solution is that this actually ought not be done in a comprehensive fashion. So I have a general critique of the way that we deal with immigration in the country. Instead of trying to solve all problems at once, which is very likely to end in nothing, what we ought to first do is we ought to close the border.
And then the border is closed right now.
Okay, so first off, IRI comes in, and most of the people are like, hey, how you going? He's ready to go. He's ready to pounce. And he goes with this argument that you've heard the talking points from the Democrats like Kamala Harris that have gone out, that actually the Democrats care about the border, and there was a bipartisan border bill that was supported by, or written by conservative Lankford, and Mitch McConnell supported it, so wouldn't that have solved things? And Shapiro's like, no. And Shapiro does make a relevant point here, which one of the problems with the discourse on immigration for years has been that the Democrats sort of use bargaining chips of, well, we'll finally pretend to close the phony baloney border as long as you grant amnesty to a bunch of people. And as I've been advocating for, no, a precursor must be before any consideration is given to keeping any illegal here, whether through a path to citizenship or otherwise, the border must be secure first. Because if not, what happens is you provide these things for the illegals that are here, then you say, and then we'll get to work on providing for protection at the border. And you've just provided incentive for millions more people to say, hey, look, those other people that came there illegally were eventually allowed in and made citizens or whatever. And so we're going to come as well. Then the Democrats will go, geez, well, morally, we have to let these people in. We'll work on securing the border later. So Shapiro is saying one of the problems with the border bill was that it did not secure the border, that it actually did things like enshrine that 5,000 people a day would be left in. And so instead of trying to have an all-encompassing bill that would do things like provide different assets for our courts and for ICE agents, and it provides some limited funding for a wall, and provide money for lawyers for people that were trying to get in, and provide money to Ukraine, and all of these other things, a precursor must be securing the border. So that's sort of where this is starting. And then he asked what the solution would be, IRI.
Do you agree?
The border is certainly not closed.
Oh, I'm sorry. And then IRI says the border's secure now. That's not true, as you'll hear Ben. Notice how IRI immediately moves on. He doesn't address Ben's specific problem with the bill, and he goes, but the border's secure now. So he's already moved off of point 1 onto point 2.
What do you mean? There's a small trickle of people coming over. The numbers are similar to the end of the Trump administration, no?
Well, now because of executive order, they have been reduced significantly, but...
Do you not agree that they're the same number as the end of the Trump administration?
Right now,
yes.
It is on a monthly basis, but
yes.
That's after letting in 6.5 million illegal immigrants.
So do you think Trump was failing then at the end of...
Notice how IRI completely ignores what Ben's saying here. So I'll admit that it's rhetorically effective to try to cherry pick the data and go, well, okay, they left millions of people in for the last 3.5 years, but for the past 4 or 5 months, the numbers are kind of similar, a little worse than they were on average during the Trump years, but kind of similar. And Ben's specific answer is, well, that is true, that, and he doesn't say this, but because it's an election year and they realize this is an issue that matters, they, who did nothing for 3.5 years, in fact, the opposite of nothing, they did worse. They intentionally rescinded Trump's executive orders. Now Biden has instituted an executive order. So that shows that he could have done this all along for 3.5 years and chose not to. But now that he has, IRI's like, oh, now we find the numbers more acceptable. And Ben's directly answering this. He's saying, well, yeah, they left 6.5 million in, but I guess the past couple months have been way better than that? And IRI's like, so you're saying Trump failed? That's non-responsive to what Ben said at all. No, it's not that Ben's saying Trump failed. He's specifically articulate the problem, which is hyper-focusing on the couple of months since Biden's reinstituted an executive order that were remotely similar to the ones he rescinded for 3.5 years under Trump.
Of his administration?
I think that Donald Trump did a better job than Joe Biden. He certainly did not do a perfect job on illegal immigration.
So Joe Biden is matching what Donald Trump is doing right now. So
After
you
letting in
applaud Joe Biden?
After letting in 6.5 to 11 million illegal immigrants,
Well,
I don't think
those
you
are
get to
border-
fill in that gap
those are
by
border-
doing like 4 months of good border policy.
Those are border encounters. We don't know how many of those people were turned away. We don't know how many of those people are still in this country. But those people make up a significant portion of our labor force as well.
So now you can see again. So you see the game IRI is playing. He constantly is moving the goalpost. So he again hammers on, oh, so if Trump was doing good, then Biden's doing good. And it's like, well, no, right? He's not doing, again, this is similar to the debate I had last night, right? So the idea of inflation, I'll give the same example. IRI would probably say Biden's inflation numbers are great now. They're great. The Harris-Biden inflation numbers are great. According to our stats, they're only 2.4 year over year. That's very similar to the Trump years. Are you saying Trump was bad on inflation? Well, no. What we're saying is things were so bad for so long that now that they've come in the last 3 months down to sort of reasonable, that's not to say that Harris-Biden has done well. But that's sort of the argument that IRI is trying to play here. And then, of course, when he can't argue this, he then moves on to something else. Right? So he says, oh, well, actually the numbers are border encounters. We don't know how many of those people have stayed. Well, we, for example, know that there were something like 1.7 million known gotaways. And we do for a fact know that so many of those people were left in. There's not data. What is his claim? That the data suggests that that all of these people were sent back? That's not what it suggests at all. Now, let me make an argument that IRI is not making that you oftentimes hear the left try to make. They'll say, actually, the Biden administration has sent more people back than the Trump administration. And that's true. I had a person call in and do this debate a month or so ago that was using those same statistics. The problem is, picture it this way. Let's say under Trump, 800,000 people came in a year. There were 800,000 border encounters in 1 year. We know for a fact that they sent back a smaller percentage of those people than the Biden administration does. So I can't remember the exact stats, but let's say they sent back 5% of them. That means that we know that those umpteen hundreds of thousands have actually remained. That's what we know would have happened because we have the percentage that we knew were sent back. If Biden sent a bigger percentage back, that means that he's doing better on the border, right? Well, no, because if 800,000 came in under Trump and they sent, say, 5% of them back, we could still say, okay, that's 700,000 and change that remained. However, under Biden, if 3 million or close to 3 million came and they sent 20% back, we still know that that's millions upon millions that were allowed to remain. So IRI is sort of going to an appeal to ignorance. Well, we don't know. Those were just encounters. The problem is, even if we accept that, we know that he's wrong on the premise that millions of those people have stayed, including 1.7 million known gotaways. But the problem is that's the same data set that we're using under Trump. So if we were to say, well, we don't know, those are just encounters, not people that have stayed, then why is he referencing those same sort of numbers when he's talking about the success or failure of the Trump administration? Those numbers, too, are encounters. For example, if Ben Shapiro would have just said to IRI there, actually Trump was successful and Biden wasn't, because those are just border encounters, the number, and Trump sent all of the people back. IRI would say, that's not true. Trump didn't send all of the people back. Where is your proof? And yet he's trying to play the exact same game when it comes to, oh, it's just border encounters. Then he immediately switches before Shapiro even gets a chance to respond to that and says, we need these people for the labor force. So again, he has moved the goalpost and moved on to something. Now, I understand that the left thinks this is impressive. IRI says something, Ben Shapiro answers it rather succinctly, and IRI's like, so what you're saying is, and then moves on to another topic. Well, let's hear it.
Oh, including in states like yours, Florida, where they make up like 5%.
So your argument is that it's not happening, and it's good that it is.
That's exactly what his argument is, and Ben's correct to point it out. So IRI said the problem's being solved. It's as good as it was during the Trump administration, et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't some crisis under Biden. And then it's, oh, and these people that come make up huge portions of the labor force, and it's a good thing. So Shapiro is right. He directly calls this out, and this is a tactic that the Democrats often use. That's not happening. And then after you have to argue tooth and nail with them that deny reality that it is happening, they say, well, yeah, it's actually a good thing. So very good of Ben to point that out.
It's not happening? What do you mean?
That the illegal immigration pool is not very large, and also it's good that it is large.
I'm saying you guys make up numbers all the time. It's like
That
20,
argument is not for
30
me.
million.
That's
Now he just defaults to you're making up numbers. We're basing it off the numbers that we've agreed have occurred. So what numbers is he claiming that Ben Shapiro is making up? Ben Shapiro is talking, granted he hasn't said specifics, but he's talking in general about the border encounter numbers that came through ICE. So is IRI claiming that they've just made up the numbers, that ICE made up the numbers when they said that there were millions upon millions coming in under the Biden-Harris administration? And why does it seem that I'm Really Important accepts those same numbers now that are saying the monthly crossings are down? So IRI is actually accusing Ben Shapiro of exactly what he's doing. He's saying when the border numbers favor the narrative that IRI wants, he says, see, look at the numbers. But he claims that Shapiro is somehow making up numbers when he's talking about the large numbers that have occurred under Biden. And you can clearly see this is a red herring because he knows he's trapped, and he's basically done what Shapiro accuses him of saying the problem's not happening, but the fact that it is happening is a good thing. And so he immediately goes, but conservatives make up numbers. Very poor on IRI's performance at this point.
That's from the Wall Street Journal. I'm not making up that number.
Well, Donald Trump said he wants to deport 20 million of these guys. What do you think?
So now he deflects again. So far, we can see every single time he makes a point, Ben Shapiro rebuts the specificity of the point, and then IRI moves on to something else. So now we went, just in the past like 30 seconds, we went to, actually, the numbers are good, right? The numbers are down. And then when Ben specifically answers that, he goes, that's because, the Border Patrol, you make up numbers. We don't know if we can count it. And it's good. They make up large portions of the labor force. And conservatives make up number. And Shapiro directly responds to that. And now he's moved on to this.
You think of that?
I mean, I think that if we were going to look at deportations, we obviously ought to tranche that out based on criminal record. We ought to tranche it out based on usefulness to the economy. I think we ought to look at each person individually and determine whether they ought to be deported or not.
So that is probably going to lead to a small trickle of people being kicked out of here. So that's not going to accomplish your goal.
Well, I mean...
So Shapiro, first off, hasn't stated exactly what his goal is, right? Secondly, Shapiro correctly outlined, so now that we've moved on to this red herring of how do you deport all of these people, okay, Shapiro says, well, it'll probably be an incremental process that you deport the worst people first. And then IRI assumes to know what Ben Shapiro's goal is and says that won't accomplish your goal.
Who said that my goal was to mass deport 20 million people all at once?
So you want 20 million undocumented immigrants to stay in America?
No.
Now, are you starting to get the Kathy Newman? You remember that? So what you're saying, her interview with Jordan Peterson, are you starting to get that vibe? Again, repeatedly what IRI, so what you're saying is, so again, let's repeat what just happened. IRI says the problem wasn't occurring, Biden's doing well. Shapiro correctly articulates how that's not the case. IRI says, well, we can't trust the numbers, those are just border crossings. Dispensed with that. IRI says conservatives just that actually it's good because they make up the labor force. Shapiro says, so you're saying it's not happening, but it's good that it is happening. IRI then says, without reference, that conservatives just make up numbers. Shapiro talks about how those numbers aren't made up. IRI then switches to saying, but Trump wants to deport millions of people. How would that happen? Ben Shapiro talks about how that would happen. IRI then says, so what you're saying is your goal is that you want 20 million people deported. Ben Shapiro says, that's not what I'm saying. IRI then says, oh, so you want 20 million illegals to stay. Ben Shapiro then says, that's not what I'm saying. Do you see what's occurring here? Let's continue.
No, that is not what I'm saying. I failed to see how you got from, I would like to go through one by one in the same way that we do IRS tax forms for literally every American who pays taxes in the United States and go through illegal immigrants and determine who ought to stay in the country and who not ought to stay in the country.
So what army is going to go over these 20 million people and with what?
So now he gaslights people, or he preps them to thinking, oh, Ben Shapiro wants 20 million immediately deported. And Shapiro's like, that's not what I said. Oh, so Ben Shapiro wants 20 million illegals to stay. And Shapiro's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. Again, articulating his position pretty fluently the entire time through. And now IRI moves on to another point after being proved right every single time so far. Now, again, this is, you go to X and you look at someone like Pondering, who's posting on X. Oh man, IRI, you crushed it. I mean, for goodness sakes, this is wretched. I mean, it's not as bad as the people I've debated last night, but you get the point. So now he's back to, well, what army is going to deport all of these people? Okay, so we've moved the goalpost once more.
What resources? Where are you going to detain them? How are you going to get them out of the country?
I mean, you'll detain them and you'll deport them, increasing the resources of ICE. The biggest problem with regard to
similar to the bill that was rejected by.
So he says, well, we would increase resources to agencies like ICE. And IRI's like, the bill. Now, again, this is a red herring that Democrats like to say, or like to use. So imagine this. Imagine if we have ICE and Border Patrol union people that are saying, literally, the Harris-Biden administration is intentionally hamstringing us so that we can't do our job to protect the border. That's what they're saying. And then a bill is proffered that enshrines so many of the terrible things that are problematic at the border, such as enshrines the fact that we have to leave 5,000 people a day in before it goes into effect, enshrines the fact that it gives Mayorkas and people at DHS carte blanche to decide to arbitrarily allow people in if they feel like it, which we know they do feel like it, because for 3.5 years, that's exactly what it's done. Funds the very NGOs that are causing these problems in the first place, enshrines into law the catch and release practices, and enshrines this terrible law into law so that even if Republicans and Trump win, they won't be able to rescind it. Now, if you think that I'm exaggerating what would happen, look at the discourse when it comes to the Haitian migrants and people like Charleroi, Pennsylvania, or in Ohio there. One of the things that you'll hear people say, for example, I've heard Pisco say this, actually, those Haitians are legal. They're legal. Right, they're legal because that Joe Biden waved a magic wand and said, these people are eligible for our refugee status, therefore they bring them all in, it's legal. Small comfort that is to the people in these communities that are suffering because they have massive amounts of people coming in that don't know the language and have a vastly different culture, that insane amounts of resources. Thanks so much, Mega, for the follow. I really appreciate it. Small comfort to them, right? But, well, technically they're legal. And so that's it's the law. They're legal. This is the exact same rhetoric that would be used if we would have passed this law. As 5,000 people a day came across the border and there was no enforcement mechanism for them, the argument that you would have saw IRI making is, these people aren't illegals, they're legal. You all supported the bill that made them legal. That's what they would have said, just like they're saying with the Haitian migrants, which is further evidence as to why this was a bad bill, because it would have enshrined these people being allowed to come, which the Democrats would have taken an inch and ran them out and said, see, they're all good. That's what we wanted anyways. And you supported the bill that made them legal.
Well, I mean, you're neglecting the part of the bill that allowed a baseline of 5,000 illegal immigrants border encounters before the executive branch automatically kicked in border enforcement. So I've been down to the border, okay? I went down to the border.
I've heard this says I'm really important, and again, IRI is the person that Ben Shapiro is debating. Goes by the name of I'm really important. I'm shortening it. He's someone I've debated.
Let me tell you what I saw at the border, and then we can go. Okay, so
saw with your own eyes.
I find the smugness of I'm really important to be quite funny, too. Now, it's not that I've never been smug. In fact, I was being a little smug last night. But normally, smugness is appropriate, or at least a little more acceptable, if you're actually doing well. And he's not. He's not doing close to well. I employed smugness, for example, last night because my opponent was so laughable that it seemed to warrant it. And I think 99% of objective people would say, yeah, that's one of the worst debaters I've ever seen. Ben Shapiro, by any metric, is a very good debater. And IRI smugness, I think, therefore comes across as desperation to cover up from the fact that he's not doing very well.
Not just saw with my own eyes, talked to the Border Patrol agents. Okay, the way that the Biden administration was treating the border for the vast majority of their term was to treat a claim of asylum without evidence as evidence that the person ought to be given asylum. So
you're-
the first priority was for Border Patrol to be activated to go to places where Mexican drug cartels were leaving people at the border en masse, and then to process those people and let them into the country within 72 hours. The goal of this for the Mexican drug cartels was to clear large swaths of the border of Border Patrol agents specifically, so that in those unoccupied areas, fentanyl and drugs could then be passed, human trafficking can then be passed in those unoccupied areas.
So you mentioned these cartels. You agree these cartels are profiting off human trafficking, right?
Okay. Yeah, that's true. He's talking about the cartel. So Ben Shapiro just outlined, you might agree or disagree with him. I happen to agree. He outlined how the system is being exploited. Now, what he's talking about is ICE has basically been told, if you don't have proof that the asylum claim is incorrect, the default is to accept it. So if someone comes and they literally have like no paperwork or anything, that ICE is incapable of saying, oh, here we found something in your history that says we can't let you in, like you're a suspected terrorist, etc. The default is, instead of what it should be, to say, no, you can't come in unless you prove your claim. The default is, yes, you're allowed to come in unless we could disprove it. Now, it's not just with ICE. Actually, I was reading just yesterday that the Republicans had put out sort of a statement showing that there are hundreds of thousands, I don't know the specific numbers, but huge amounts of illegals, that because the Department of Homeland Security is sort of intentionally dropping the ball, it's granting de facto shadow amnesty. So one of the things that will happen is we set court cases up for these asylum cases, and then DHS agents just don't show up. Oh, well then the asylum refugee claim just goes through automatically because they don't show up. What's happening under the Harris-Biden administration is sort of a policy and a culture all throughout our government that says we must leave these people in as the default. That's true of the border agents, that's true of Department of Homeland Security, the lawyers, the judges, etc. And the result is the vast majority of people that come with an asylum claim are ended up being left into this country.
Of course.
So why don't we open up legal means for these people to come in here? Then they don't have to give the cartels money. They're making more money off human trafficking right now because of our immigration system. It doesn't allow more people. And the Republicans do not have a bill to allow more people to come here legally.
I mean,
So, okay, what IRI just said, if you were listening, is, well, so you're admitting that the cartels are profiting off this. Yes, Ben Shapiro outlined specifically how the policies of Harris-Biden are a benefit to the cartels and how they're exploiting it. IRI has no answer to this whatsoever and just says, well, then we should just leave everyone in. That way the cartels don't profit. We should make them all legal. Now, this is something that's routinely done by Democrats. They'll cheer for policies that harm the rest of the world, such as they'll cheer for the United States to remain in Syria in perpetuity. And then they'll say, look, the United States is in Syria and there's a conflict in Syria and that helps create refugees. So now the United States and their allies must take refugees. You hear this all the time from Democrats. They'll say, well, the United States' disastrous war on drug policies have created refugees in South America. And so now we're obligated to take these people in. And the irony is, what they do is, instead of doing what I do that says, you're right in the sense that the United States should not be intentionally causing harm through our CIA and other intel outlets to these countries engaged in things like color revolutions and monkeying with their countries. We ought to stay out of it. No, says IRI and company. They support those intelligence agencies like the CIA. However, they then say, look, they caused a problem, and now we're obligated. We have to pay the price and accept these people coming in, which also happens to coincide exactly with the beliefs and the wants of people like I'm Really Important and the Democratic Party. So now he's making the argument, see, we want all these people to have amnesty. That's what we want. And the fact that our open border policies are benefiting the cartel. Well, I guess then if we just give all these people amnesty and allow them all in legally, that will somehow harm the cartel.
So your answer to illegal immigration is just magically legalize everyone.
No, it's to open up legal paths so these people don't have to leave their livelihood in these countries and carry a bag and walk through the jungle with their kids.
By the logic that you're using.
But again, he assumes the entitlement that these people should be allowed in by default. And so he says, well, now they have no choice but to do something illegal. They have no choice but to come here illegally because we didn't allow them to come illegally. This is like saying that we should legalize shoplifting because the shoplifters have no choice but to break the law because they need the products to feed themselves and their kids. And so therefore we're the bad guys for making it illegal. If we just legalized it, then it wouldn't be illegal. And Shapiro does a good job of arguing it.
And we could make murder absolutely not a thing by simply pretending that murder is now legal.
What?
Your suggestion.
The audience all laughs, but Ben Shapiro is making a salient point, taking it to the logical extreme. If your argument is, well, we could make all of this illegal bad stuff go away by just saying it's legal, wouldn't that be the same as saying we could make murder disappear if we just say that murder is legal? Now, it's not the best example, but by no means is it laughable to the extent that they're doing here. And you can see the condescending laughter. They think they're so smart. And I watched a decent portion of this. None of them are doing particularly well. The undue arrogance of the people in this crowd I find incredibly amazing.
Your suggestion is that millions of illegal immigrants ought to just become legal immigrants, and then magically this would solve the entire problem.
We have failed these people. We have benefited tremendously.
We have failed these people. We have benefited from them. Do you see? Now remember the debate I did 2 nights ago with Sage Outcast, where right at the onset of the debate, he tries to make this claim. And so, oftentimes the best thing you could do is just let people talk, and they'll tell you accidentally what their real beliefs are. I wear my beliefs on my sleeve. You might think that some of my beliefs are horrible. You might think that they are wrong. That's okay. I'm at least telling you what I honestly believe. Democrats will oftentimes hide behind empty platitudes and conceal what their beliefs actually are. So they'll not tell you that actually we want millions of these people. Yes, we do want them. Yes, we do want amnesty for them. That is actually what they won't admit that because they know it's not popular. So they have to pretend, oh, no. But listen to IRI here. What he says is, we failed these people. IRI says that the United States, our government that's supposed to represent the people of this country that are suffering immensely from this immigration crisis that was caused by the Harris-Biden administration, actually the problem is that we failed the illegals. That's the problem. That's what IRI just said. We failed these people. We benefit from them. We don't owe these people anything. The United States immigration system should have one metric by which it uses to decide whether or not people come in. And that metric should be, does it benefit the people of the United States? Period. End of story. It shouldn't be, we owe these people around the world something. We do not. I will agree that we shouldn't intentionally cause harm to countries around the world. Great IRI, join me in saying that we should stop funding places like the CIA that are intentionally causing harm around the world. And the globalist sort of neocons that you now align yourself with. Yep, we should stop their disastrous foreign policy decisions. But after that, we, the American citizens, me, you, my neighbors that are struggling, my community that's struggling to afford groceries, we don't owe these people anything. Dustin Babola says, so what you're saying is you don't want any immigration. I quite clearly outlined that the policy of the United States should be to have an immigration system based solely on the metric of does it benefit the United States. If zero immigration right now would benefit the United States more than any immigration, yes, that would be the answer. I strongly suspect that that's not the case. I strongly suspect that there are individual things that we could have individual people that are uniquely talented for a specific situation that we should allow in through a legal process. For example, if someone is a doctor that specializes in heart surgery that is uniquely talented, and that's something that we could use in the United States, yes, I have no problem accepting that migrant. That's different than saying we need to accept millions of unvetted people that don't have skills and are a drain on our country.
Off exploiting these people. You and I, we have benefited from these people working hard. They just want to be here and be a part of our country. I can't think of anything more American than that.
I'm not doubting the willingness of people to come.
Notice how people are pumping their fists. So the argument is we're always supposed to believe that everyone that's crossing our border are these noble, great, fantastic people. They're just hardworking. They're not here for any benefits. All they wanted to do, they scraped together with their families and traveled through mud and rocks and the heat and through cartels and all this stuff merely so they could come here and say, please, America, let me manufacture microchips. That's why we're here. We just wanted these great jobs that Americans are unwilling to do that we will sacrifice and benefit you for. That's not the case. So, for example, depending on the numbers you use, you can see that actually illegal immigration is an incredible drain on the United States. Border crisis costs American taxpayers $451 billion annually. Pay for services provided to a record number of illegal aliens. A 49-page report, the House Committee on Homeland Security found that nearly $500 billion is being lost in healthcare, law enforcement, education, housing, and other sectors due to an influx of illegal immigration. The $451 billion figure takes into account the millions of illegal migrants released by Secretary Mayorkas. There are other numbers that talk about how this cost hundreds of billions of dollars. Oops, sorry. But we're just supposed to accept, no. They're not using any resources. They're only here to be hardworking people. That's not true. If IRI is correct, and we see these studies that they constantly cite that say, actually, illegals are a boon. They commit less crime than average Americans, so they're better than average Americans. They're all hardworking people that are just here to work hard. They're great people that love America. Then why is it that every time we send these people to any community, the people of that community reject them? Universally. Every single time. I can't think of one time where these people in mass amounts have gone to a community that the average member of that community has been like, thank goodness. We sent 50 of them to Martha's Vineyard, and Martha's Vineyard, one of the wealthiest communities in this country, couldn't handle 50 for 48 hours. My small community that I live in would be able to help put 50 people up for more than a week easily. What did the people of Martha Vineyard do? They gave them Cheerios and sent them on their way. "Mi-ama, mi-ama," they shouted. They felt good about themselves. Oh, we gave them bowls of cereal for 48 hours. And then we asked the military to kindly sweep them away. And people like IRI, I can't say him, but people I talked to like Pisco said, well, the problem was that Martha's Vineyard didn't have the resources to handle these people. Resources? Aren't the people of Martha's Vineyard aware? Don't they know? Even if there's an initial small cost to these illegals, they'll benefit your society in so many ways. They bring good food and culture. They increase your economic activities. How did the people of Martha's Vineyard not know? Couldn't someone like IRI have told them, these are all great people. Please let them into your community. It's almost like we all intuitively know that that's not the case. Canada is a far better country than the United States. You see, the United States is filled with bigots and racists, but not Canada. They're more progressive than us. Oh, wait, what's that? Trudeau just admitted that they're stopping immigration? They need to stop it because it's costing too much? How can that be? They're all hardworking people that are crawling through rocks and deserts, etc. to get here just to work. They're not taking resources.
To the country. I'm doubting the incentive structure that draws people to the country with rich array of social benefits that didn't exist.
What is that incentive structure?
That incentive structure is things like Medicaid, things like free
man.
schooling.
Do you think someone's going to leave their home in Venezuela to come here and leech off our Medicaid? These people.
Yes. That is exactly what I think. Yes, they're going to come here because they were guaranteed free benefits. In the 2020 primary, almost every single Democrat raised their hand when asked if they would give these benefits to illegals. Yes, they absolutely will do that. I don't know what else to say. IRI is trying to have you believe that the overwhelming majority of the illegal immigrants that come don't want any benefits at all. They don't want them. If that's true, then surely they would be turning down the benefits, correct? No, they're happily accepting them. I mean, I think that IRI knows he's lying, but let's assume for a second that he doesn't. Is he really so naive that he thinks if you offer free benefits to people, that doesn't provide an incentive for people to try to come to get those free benefits? This would be the same rationale that would say, oh, no one would ever exploit welfare in the United States. No one would ever exploit it. Every single person that's on welfare or disability, absolutely, they're reluctant to take it. They really are. They're reluctant. They all just want to be hard workers. It's not reality. And I'm tired of pretending these people that are ignoring reality are somehow making some good point. It's not.
People want to work. These people want to live, man.
Okay, then if they sign a contract saying they...
Now look at the audience clapping like they can't even clap like regular people. Now it's get it right. Ready? Right. Let's all do it together right at home. Like this sucks and is soy. That's masculine and the appropriate way to clap. Let's see that clap again. Watch these big claps. Ready?
Off our Medicaid. These people want to work. These people want to live, man.
Okay, then if they sign a contract saying they don't receive social benefits...
Oh, wait. Look at this guy over here in the black. He's doing the finger snap. I forgot. Clapping is too triggering. Look at this guy right here in the black on the left, right next to the lady in the red hair here. Let's watch him snap his fingers. Look at this smile on his face.
These
this
people want to work. These people want to live, man.
Okay, then if they sign a contract saying they don't receive social benefits, they're more than welcome to say.
Oh, that's a mic drop moment, baby. Woo!
To work. These people want to live, man.
Okay, then if they sign a contract
Now, with Ben Shapiro, listen to what he's going to say. This is important.
saying they don't receive social benefits, they're more than welcome to say.
Oh, well, sadly, they would take benefits that they were available to them if they could come out of the shadows, and they would actually pay more taxes and contribute more to society.
So, notice Ben Shapiro just said, fine. Then if the people that come sign a contract that says that they won't accept any benefits, then we'll allow them to stay. And our eyes like, well, sadly, they would come out of the shadows. How is that responsive to what Ben just said? Ben's offering a compromise here. Okay, all of the people that are here then illegally, they sign a contract that says we will no longer be accepted for any government benefit. No Medicare, no government services, no food stamps, etc. We won't accept any of that. Therefore, the only incentive they would have to stay would be able to work. Which IRI claims they're already doing. They're already working. And IRI's like, well, if we legalize them, they would come out of the shadows. Non-responsive to what Ben Shapiro said, because IRI knows the truth. That these people are taking government benefits, as the data shows. $450 billion. Now, I'll admit, there are other studies that say other things. I saw studies that said they're costing $150 billion a year.
Ask you, if there's
Passionate hands, no worries.
if there's an accident, and let's say your wife's in an accident, a car accident, the only person that witnessed it is an undocumented immigrant. They're not coming forward to be a witness, Ben. Doesn't that trouble you?
This is the reason that I should allow millions and millions of illegal immigrants into the country, is on the off chance that they might be a witness?
It's one reason that these people...
Now, what just happened here, again, you notice how the theme throughout this whole thing is IRI says something, Ben Shapiro responds to it with specificity, and IRI does some combination of it. So what you're saying is, or he just completely moves on to another point. So he just said, oh, these people are hard working. They're not here for benefits. They just want to work hard. Says the audience, okay. Like that's some mic drop moment. And Shapiro's like, cool. Then they should sign contracts that they won't accept government benefits. And I goes, well, they come out of the shadows. And Ben, if your wife's in a car accident and illegal sees it, they're not going to come forward. One, that's not true at all. Secondly, that sounds like if that's the case that they're terrible people. And third, what does that have anything to do why we should grant mass amnesty to millions upon millions of people? Like, wouldn't this be the equivalent of saying, let's say there's a warrant out for someone's arrest for lack of child support. And then they see your wife get in a car wreck. Well, they won't come forward because if they go to the police will see, oh, you have a warrant. Therefore, we should make sure that we don't have child support laws. Right? Same logic. Sexual assaults. There's a warrant out for someone for sexual assault. Oh, but they see your wife get in a car wreck, so they won't come forward because that warrant's out. Therefore, we should legalize sexual assault. Right? This is so dumb. And the fact that this audience thinks this, again, I remind you, there are literally left-wingers on spaces like X, including some that I didn't think were that dumb, like Pondering and other people that I've debated on the left. They're like, oh my goodness, IRI, you crushed it. I don't know what to say. This is pathetic.
People are being treated as second-class citizens, even though they benefit you and I.
Can I ask a question? What is your standard?
No, the illegals aren't being treated as second-class citizens because they're not citizens. That's the whole point. IRI's argument seems to be illegals should be citizens, otherwise they're not treated like citizens. What are you talking about? Shipwrecked Demon, I see that you like to put in the chat many times on my videos. You're welcome to call in anytime you want and show you how my interpretation is so dumb. I welcome the debate. My gut is you will not do so because you're a coward. I'm even willing to take time out of stopping this debate analysis right now to have you call in right now. You clearly say that I'm stupid all the time and that my takes are always bad and easily dispensed, so you'll have no problem calling in and being able to do so. Correct, Shipwrecked Demon? Meanwhile, as we wait for him to give an excuse why he can't call in, I don't have a phone, I don't know how Discord works, I'm at work right now, etc., the same sources that we always hear. We'll continue on with the analysis of the debate. No later, if you've seen, I have priorities going on today. You're clearly here right now, let's do it. It's 6 a.m. for you, and yet you're typing right now. If you're capable of typing and arguing through text, why are you incapable of calling in? It's too early to talk. That's why I'm typing. HU crying instead of reason. Okay, comprehension poor on your point as well. I know you're typing. I certainly have a lot of typos as well, but I don't even know what you're trying to say. Okay, nonetheless, it seems like Shipwrecked Demon is going to be a coward, so I will kindly dispense with viewing what he's saying from the rest of this. No need to comment on him. Another person that's too scared to call in. I could type, but I can't talk because it's 6 a.m. Great. Moving on with the debate.
For whether someone should be allowed into the country.
My standard?
Yes.
What do you mean my standard? Like as far as their
I mean,
education or their ability?
Yes. You're creating immigration policy. Who should be allowed into the country?
I think we should allow a wide variety of people. This country,
everyone.
not everybody starts.
Notice the empty platitude. So Shapiro's like, fine. Okay. But you keep sort of saying all these people should be left in. Shapiro's like, so what would your policy be? And you can see that he won't have specifics. That instead, he will say, how do you call in? Through Discord. Great. You want to call in? Excellent. Here's the Discord. But I don't have Discord is going to be the next excuse. There you go. Oh, one more thing. I will. Now, I know another trick that people like to do like this is to then pretend they're going to call in and then not do so, so it causes delay. So please, someone in the chat, let me know if you see that he comes in on the Discord and is ready for the call. Otherwise, we're going to continue with the debate analysis. So Shapiro asks him specifically, okay, what would your policies be? And he responds with his empty platitude. I think we should let in a variety of people. I don't have an hour. Why do you need coffee? At any given moment, I may be asked to leave because I have other priorities today. You clearly have something to say now, so call in and say it. I'm not going to sit here and wait for you for an hour. If I happen to still be on in an hour and you want to call, fine. But it shows an act of cowardice that you're willing to argue with me in the text right now. You clearly have access to Discord, and you're clearly capable of talking now. So if you're choosing not to do so because you need caffeine or something, I'm sorry, I'm not the type of person that needs to supplement with sort of things before I'm able to engage in some sort of debate. So I'm going to ignore you until you eventually call in. So you can see that I am really important, has no idea whatsoever what his metric would be. I would allow a variety of people. Right. Ben Shapiro is saying, what exactly would be the policies that you would say? What's your metric from why we choose to accept someone or not? Saying I would accept a variety of people isn't an answer to that question.
Starts out as a doctor, Ben. Some people start out doing menial tasks.
So everyone. So you have no limits. How about numbers?
No,
Do you have any number limit? No numerical limit.
20,000 people die or retire in this country.
So, okay, you can't give a criteria of the types of people. Like, for example, you couldn't say, we will accept people that sign a contract that are willing to work. We will accept people that are qualified to work in certain fields that the United States lead. We will accept people within a certain age group. He can't give any metrics like that. So Ben's like, fine, let's try another tactic. Do you have a number of which after we reach that number, you would say that's too many? And this is a question I've asked lefties all the time. They do not have a number. And no one's asking for a specific number. You know, each year we would allow exactly 1.783,633,000. Yeah, no one's saying that. But give us a ballpark. At some point, there's a number that's too much, right? At some point we could say, okay, we're filled up. So do you have a ballpark idea of what that be? 100 million? 20 million? 500 million? You got any sort of clue? Can you give me that? No, says I am really important. I can't give you that. Okay.
A day, there's only 10,000 births. We need more people.
I agree. That's why we should all have more babies.
So, okay.
We need more people. Again, you can see the Democrat position, just like I said earlier, they support policies that create a problem, and then they say, now we must sacrifice because we owe people something, and therefore it's another thing that they want. We cause problems in countries through our CIA, which they support, and then they say, see, now we have to take in the refugees. They support disastrous things like abortion policies and a culture that benefits materialism and is against family values. And then they say, not enough people are having children, so now we must do another thing we want, which is mass import people. And Shapiro correctly calls that out, says, yes, we should incentivize people to have children.
Well, guess what? People aren't going to have them because you're not incentivizing it. Kamala Harris is with her things like $6,000 child tax credit. Meanwhile, you guys are just trying to cause...
Why didn't she do it while she was there? The Democrats have been in charge for 4 years. She's admitted she wouldn't have done anything that she can imagine different than Biden. There were child tax credits that were given under Trump as well. And that's a small pittance. I assure you $6,000 will be not enough to incentivize people to have children. The number one way you incentivize people to have children is to foster a culture that actually shows that materialism isn't the primary reason to live, and that actually the greatest thing you could do is to be a parent. That is the greatest thing that as a human I'm aware of that we're capable of doing. It is by far the greatest thing I've ever done in my life, but as long as the Democrats treat sex as if some activity to just have fun and go against the values of having family, I'm sorry, but then saying, and here's $6,000 doesn't provide the incentive that would be necessary to bring up those birth rates. In addition to that, $6,000 is a pittance compared to the cost that went up due to inflation because of the mass spending, lockdowns, etc., that the Democratic parties were party to.
Cause more problems and make it harder for people to raise families.
Okay, as a person with 4 children, I can promise you I have a very, very strong incentive structure in allowing people to have more kids and incentivizing people to have more kids. I wish that government benefits were more effective in doing this. They simply have not been in particular areas of Europe. There's a different argument than...
That is true. So when we see areas of Europe that have given more like child tax credits and things like that, we have not seen that that's led to increased birth rates. It doesn't affect things in that way necessarily. The problem's not necessarily the cost prohibitiveness, though it is part of the problem. But you'll never be able to provide tax incentives to the level that offset the complete cost of having a child. You need to convince people that having children isn't a financially benefiting situation. It's beneficial to your life in a vastly amount of other ways. So as a net, the Republican Party that may offer less child tax credits, which they still offer some to that extent, but even if we accept they don't offer the $6,000. So we have Republicans that don't offer $6,000, which we can see that those sort of incentives don't work, as historically showed us when we look at Europe, compared to Democrats that offer that $6,000 but then promote abortion to the gills and provoke culture and values that lead to being antithetical to having children and the family unit. Which group do you think is more likely to incentivize child rearing? Tyler Guy says $6,000 for first year, $5,000 under Trump in perpetuity. Man, there you go.
And the illegal immigration argument, when we're talking about illegal immigration, you seem to be making an argument there ought to be no baseline standard for who gets in and no baseline cap for how many people get in.
I'm not saying that.
So
we can come up with a figure. We can come up with numbers. So I'm not a lawmaker. That's what we elect people to go do and work out those figures. But Republicans are just fighting everything.
I need some standard.
You need me to come up with a number.
No, okay, a number or a characteristic or some sort of standard for who you would let into the country. Because right now, all I'm hearing is you just want lots of people to come into the country without any standard and any cap on the number.
No, not at all. I want people to come here who want to work, who want to be a part of this country, and we all benefit from that.
Okay,
do you think you're not benefiting from these undocumented people? Who do you think is going to build the houses that we need with our shortage?
So do you think the people who come into the country should be eligible for all social benefits?
If they're contributing and they're allowed to contribute fully, right now they're not. They're using other people's social security.
So you can see what's happening here. Now, IRI defaults to this. I can't be expected to know what I'm talking about. This is nonsensical. These are two people arguing what hypothetically our immigration system should be. He's heavily criticizing the immigration system that Trump's suggesting, and he seems to be defending the Harris-Biden administration's immigration system, which has been an abject disaster. So Ben's like, okay, well, what would you have done differently? You're saying we need all these people, so give me some sort of idea of what your immigration system would look like. And he says, I can't come up with that. That's why we elect members of Congress. But think of the absurdity of this statement. How will we know who to elect if you have no idea what you want that policy to look like? Ben's right. It sounds like you're just saying, I just want millions of people. You don't have any idea how we should decide who those people would be. You don't have any idea of what the maximum limit of how many of those people would be. Ben's not asking for, like, I need an exact specific number or exact specific criterias. That's not what he's asking for. And IRI is incapable of giving that. He just says, no, that's why we elect people. They'll work out those details.
Security numbers to pay Social Security tax and Medicare, and they're not able to get those benefits in the long run.
So, again,
they are getting benefits. I already showed the data that says they're costing about $450 billion in benefits a year. So they are receiving a tremendous amount of benefits. And what Ben asked there was, okay, hypothetically, under your system, if you're saying, no, what we want is people that come here and contribute, are you willing to say that your immigration system that you would support then would say that these people wouldn't be eligible for benefits if they come here? And IRI says, no, they would be eligible for benefits if they were legalized and came out of the shadows. That's literally what Ben's saying that he would, it's counterintuitive to what IRI is claiming to argue against what Ben's saying he believes. For example, the Trump immigration system is being heavily criticized by some people on the right because he's talked about increasing the amount of people that want to immigrate here legally. And I think there's room for some sort of criticism of what Trump wants. But the idea of what Trump's fundamentally suggesting is, as I said earlier, an immigration system that has at the forefront of the mind, does this benefit the American people? So Ben Shapiro offers sort of a suggestion. He says, okay, what if we only allowed immigrants in that were ineligible to receive any sort of government benefit? That would all but assure one of two things. Either one, they would be someone that was contributing to society because they couldn't take any resources out because they legally wouldn't be allowed to. Or second, they would remove themselves because they wouldn't be able to continue to exist in this country because they wouldn't have the safety net of having these benefits and they would only be allowed to stay if they were. Milton Friedman talked about this. So Milton Friedman, who's sort of a libertarian-esque economist, he actually supported tantamount to open borders. He just said that we should allow anyone into this country that wants to work, and we should completely end the welfare system. He said you could have open borders or you could have a welfare system. Pick one. But what you couldn't have is a system that gives welfare to either illegals or even people in the United States, which incentivizes them not to contribute and not to work, and then brings in anyone who wants to come in. It would overwhelm the system for the people that are willing to work. So Ben's sort of offering that sort of compromise, and IRI is unwilling to accept it.
Again, I'm wondering how you're balancing the cost benefit to the American body politic if what you're suggesting is that day one you arrive in the country and now you're eligible for all social benefits.
I'm not saying day one
With
you're
no
eligible to all
education,
social
low wage
benefits.
labor.
Well, we can work all these details out. You're
Those are not
fighting over
details.
the
That's the core of the argument.
Really,
over
you're
legal
upset.
immigration.
That is absolutely the core of the argument. That's what Ben's saying. So if we're saying, oh, because IRI's trying to make this argument, he's like, well, this benefits the American people. And Ben's like, okay, if that's the case, would you leave illegals in if day one they start sucking out of the American system? Soon as they get here, it's like, okay, well, they're not trained to do much work. They don't have a job yet. So let's start giving them government benefits. And IRI's like, those are details we could work out later. And Ben's correctly like, no, that's the core of the argument. Are we bringing people here because we are guaranteed that they're going to put into the system as opposed to net drawing out or not? And if you're unwilling to say whether or not they should be getting benefits day one, it proves that you're not giving a serious argument to this.
That somebody who comes to this country and works hard and makes your life better and cheaper is going to get Social Security 40 years from now?
No, not Social Security 40 years from now. Medicaid today.
So wouldn't you rather than get
today.
Medicaid and get preventative care than go to the hospital where it costs you,
I would prefer
you
that,
the taxpayer, 10 times more money?
My point, as it has been from the
That's not the case, though. It doesn't result in you getting 10 times more money, right? If we had the ability to say these people can't accept social benefits whatsoever, then there would be more of a guarantee that they would net put in. Instead, he's suggesting everyone should be allowed in because we're aware that they will put more money in at the end of the day than they take out. That's not true. Even if that was true for, say, 75% of the people, and we would say, well, we want to keep those 75% because they're desirable, how would you know initially which of those people that would be? One of the ways you could know is to say, okay, you're not eligible for these immediate benefits. Why would that matter if IRI is correct that all these people are coming here not for the benefits, but because day one they're ready to work and do all of these hard jobs? If that's true, then it wouldn't disincentivize them from not coming if we said you're not going to get all of these benefits when you walk in the door. But IRI is unwilling to say, no, you won't get those benefits and it'll work out anyways. They'll still come because the truth is he knows deep down that these people come and they exploit these benefits. And he's fine with that. That's what he wants.
beginning is that you need screening procedures for immigration.
So
This
you're
is how
saying
it's been-
Border Patrol is failing then to screen these people properly? Is that the accusation you're making?
I'm making the case that Border Patrol certainly is failing.
How do you know
because
that? Because you talk.
Now, see how he changes the topic. Oh, so Ben's saying, what I'm saying is we need an initial, like, what should our policy be? Someone comes to the border. How do we what should the policies be whether or not we decide ultimately we're going to let them in or not? We need certain screening procedures. So if we're talking about whether or not this is beneficial to the United States, we should have ideas of like, well, what sort of benefits should they be eligible for, etc. IRI's like, I'm not interested in that. Let other people work out those details. I just want the people left in. And so then IRI immediately is like, oh, so you're saying Border Patrol is failing? Yes, that's clearly what the argument Republicans have been making for 4 years has been. Yes, there are mass amounts of people coming in. It is a crisis. Yep. Now, Border Patrol would say we're failing because we're intentionally being hamstrung by the Harris-Biden administration. But regardless of the reason, yes, it is a failure. It is a crisis. IRI goes, oh, so what's your metric from that? Just because you've been to the border? Well, the first metric we could use is the very numbers from Border Patrol that show that millions of illegals are coming in a year. Again, isn't it convenient how IRI trusts the numbers when he thinks they're beneficial to Biden, but he disputes the numbers and says, how could you know that it's a crisis? So again, we've gone from there's not a crisis to, oh, actually all of these people are great that are coming in and we're glad that there are millions of people here and we need them and they benefit your life, to now IRI saying, how there is no crisis. How could you trust there is a crisis because you went to the border? It's not happening, and then it's a good thing that's happening, and now we're back to it's not happening.
Talk to a couple Border Patrol agents. You know,
No, not-
that is so
because
insulting to our Border Patrols fighting every day on the front lines. You think they're not screening these people and they're
You see the empty platitudes? So, oh, I support Border Patrol and I think they're doing a great job. And how dare you impugn them and say that they're not doing great? They're doing a great job and how dare you suggest otherwise? All empty platitudes. If you're right and you respect the Border Patrol so much and think they're doing such a great job, then perhaps you should listen to them when they say that they're intentionally being hamstrung by the very people that you're supporting. I'm really important. Again, this is ridiculous. This is the equivalent of saying, if I say, for example, millions of people die of heart disease every year, and I would say, how dare you say, you think doctors aren't doing a good job? Is that what you're saying when you say that the doctors aren't doing a good job providing care to these people? That is outrageous. I respect the doctors, and how dare you? Right, we're saying the system's being overwhelmed. intentionally by Democratic policies, and so Border Patrol literally isn't capable of doing the job that would be necessary. And to act like that's impugning when talking about that is completely nonsensical.
Being bamboozled by some people's claiming asylum and tricking them?
No, because literally today, the FBI announced that an Afghan national was let in without vetting and tried to plan a terrorist attack on election day. Oh, it's just one. So
one guy. So there you go. If an Afghan national comes in and commits an act of terrorism that kills 5,000 people, who cares that IRI supported an open border policy that said we should let everyone in and then worry about the details later? I mean, this is insane. Again, the same sort of people that advocate this are completely fine with supporting an FBI, CIA, intel agency, etc. that have done things like the Patriot Act. They're completely fine with sort of government agencies looking into investigation and extremism online, many times which violates our Fourth Amendment. They're fine with that because we need to protect us. But at the same time, they say, but we have no problem with the southern border being completely open. And even if it turns out that it's so porous that we can see that terrorists or would-be terrorists are coming in, oh, well, that's only a small handful of them. If we have an open border, let's say that only 0.1% of the people that come would be people that want to commit significant harm to Americans. So, don't you think those would be the exact people that would be incentivized to come? Even if there's only 10 people in the world that would come here and commit an act of mass casualty terrorism, clearly they're going to take advantage of this system. Yes, it's certainly true that any system is not going to be perfect and would always leave people in. But Ben's giving a point and saying the reason we have to take the border seriously is because of situations like this, where this one guy could do something that's a mass casualty event. And IRI's response, instead of being like, well, of course we need to have some level of security at the border because we want to keep bad actors out. Of course that's true. I just don't think your policy is the best way of going. He instead says, oh, that's just one guy. Who cares?
One guy. You know how many terrorists were caught by the border under Trump?
There are over
zero.
There are over three.
At least we're catching them.
They're over.
I mean, again, they think that this is some sort of great applause. Well, we know the results of the terrorist events that occurred under Trump because we lived through it, and there weren't these sort of mass casualty events that came through people that were coming through the southern border. They think that it's a great point, like, we found all these people on the terror watch list that came across. Right, how many didn't you find? It seems that there are way more people that are on the terror watch list that are coming now than were coming under the Trump administration. And they think it's some sort of victory? Oh.
First of all, it's not true because a huge number of people, we don't know who they are coming across the border between ports of entry. Second of all, you're talking in this country right now at least 300,000 minors. We have no idea where they are.
Oh, that is nonsense.
That is not nonsense.
No, it is. It is ICE has lost track of them because it's voluntary for them to keep in touch with the system. They are not lost. They're released to their sponsors who have to go through background checks. You have no idea what you're talking about.
They don't.
You think 300,000 minors are lost in America? Are you crazy?
Yes, they are lost, as we talked about in the debate last night. So the idea is they're lost as far as the federal government agencies know. So what happens is, yes, they are released to people, and allegedly there's supposed to be background checks, but what we see over and over again is those background checks have been a failure. In fact, we know that there have been tens of thousands of kids that have been sexually exploited that came through and were given to these sponsors. So the way that our government's supposed to check up on that is to have certain metrics where they keep in touch with them, such as hearings that these children are supposed to show up to. IRI admits, well, right now the federal government has no idea where those kids are. ICE has lost track of them. Yes, that's exactly the point. Now, let's ask this. Let's say that there's someone in our chat right now. Let's take Tristan. Tristan's someone that's chatting right now in the chat. And let's say that Tristan decides to be a foster parent, and forget immigrants that are coming in. Let's just say regular foster parent, right? To be a good foster parent, there are certain laws and things that have to be met, right? Your house has to, there's inspections that take place, there's meetings that you have to go to, there's medical appointments, all of this stuff that you should be meeting. Would we think Tristan is a good foster parent if he's neglecting to show up to, say, medical appointments, neglecting to show up to court hearings? Would you think that Tristan is a good or bad foster parent if he's neglecting to do those things? It would seem to me that would strongly suggest that he's not good. And so if we have 300,000 kids that have been given to the equivalent of sponsors and or foster parents that are refusing to do the bare minimum of showing up to the hearings that they're supposed to show up to, Do you think those are good or bad foster? Wouldn't those be the very kids that you would want to check in on most? I think so. Let me get to that super chat really quick. Lord of the Nerds, $5 super chat. Without fail, Democrat fixes are always increased immigration to create new voting blocks of Democrats after pretending they want it secure. Exactly. So we have 300,000 kids that have been put with sponsors that can't even make the bare minimum requirement of showing up to the hearings that they're supposed to show up to. We have the government has no idea where those kids are now. Just we handed them off to these people. We know that there are thousands of instances of when they've handed it off to these people and the children have been sexually exploited. If you had to guess, which group of people are more likely to harm these children? The group of people that are properly showing up to the hearings, the sponsors, or the group that aren't? It is overwhelming. The people most likely to harm them would be the people that aren't. So yes, they are lost as far as the federal government's concerned. They don't know where these children are. It'd be the equivalent if I drop my kid off at his friend's parents' house. I drop them off. And their parent comes out and I say, hey, do me a favor. I'm going to be gone for the weekend, but I'm going to call and check up on them. Is that cool? I'll talk to you tonight at 8. Yeah. Then I call at 8 and they don't answer. And then 4 days later, I was supposed to have my kid back the next day. 4 days later, I still don't have my kid back. And I say, my God, my kid is lost. IRI would say, your kid's not lost. You know that you gave them to your friend's parents or his friend's parents. And I would say, but they're lost now. I don't know where they're at now. That's absurd to think they're lost. Clearly, they're not lost. Do you think that the person you dropped your kid off with doesn't know where that kid is, so therefore they're not lost?
I'm saying that
I mean, again, the smugness and the arrogance, it's absolutely amazing. You think these kids are lost? It's just the federal government has no idea where they are.
I'm not saying that. The Department of Justice is saying that.
Next thing you're going to tell me there's 19,000 murderers, right? Is that the next talking point?
No, that is not the next talking point.
Okay.
But you're going to have to explain to me why it is okay for literally tens of thousands of minors to be checked out to majors, to people who are above majority age, and then for the government to not, when I say lose track, I don't mean minors
checked
walking
out
the
to their
streets by
sponsor who goes through a background check. Is that what you mean?
They do not go through.
How do you know that?
Because they're not checking in.
How
A
do you know
huge
that?
number of people.
Oh, it's voluntary. Why?
The IG report made it clear that the onus is on ICE and the Department of Health and Human Services to ensure the safety of the children. That is the official policy of ICE and the Department of Health and Human Services. The idea of, well, they gave them to a sponsor that they're comfortable with and that's all that is not the policy of the United States. ICE and the Department of Health and Human Services are supposed to ensure the safety of the children, and they don't know where 300,000 of them are. They know they handed them off to a person. They said, we're going to check in, and then they were unable to check in. And that these people are laughing at those 300,000 children that are missing.
Why does our law allow for it to be voluntary then if it's not working?
The law should not allow for it to be voluntary.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, in some cases, it is not voluntary.
So-
and in fact, human
okay, so-
trafficking is going on at scale.
It sounds like
Why is
you're
this so-
upset
by
when
the
the
way-
problem doesn't exist. What
I
is
have
this
a question.
problem?
Why are you okay with minors who are being checked out to people of majority age who then don't check in with the government? Is that okay with you?
I'm okay with minors being checked out to their sponsors who go through background checks, who are usually family members, people that.
It says, the Office of Refugee Resettlement places unaccompanied children with sponsors, including those unrelated to them. All sponsors undergo an assessment process, criminal and sex offender checks, and a background check on other adults in the care plan. Let's assume that they do an excellent job vetting that, right? Let's assume that they do pass a background check, that they aren't a criminal or a sex offender. And does that mean that they couldn't harm the child? IRI seems to be suggesting once they pass that background check, that's it. The government no longer needs to check in. Again, take out the idea of these children in legal immigration. With our foster system, just general foster care system, the idea of, well, this foster care passed a background check, therefore that's it. The government doesn't need to check in anymore. That's nonsensical. Or my job. I have to pack a background check to do my job, which is home health care with adults with disabilities. And so the argument IRI seems to be making is, well, once Rob passes that background check, the government is now under no obligation whatsoever to check in on Rob or the company that's taking care or that hired Rob to help take care of individuals because they passed the background check. I'm okay with that. So right now, for example, there are audits that occur every year. We have what's called the 6400 regulations. This is a huge section of regulations of things that you wouldn't believe down to the minute detail. For example, any garbage can more than 12 inches has to have a lid on it. Any place that has stairs that has more than 2 stairs has to have a handrail. There can't be any carpet without one of those like sort of dividers on it, or that's considered a tripping hazard. There has to be a mirror that is of a certain size in any bedroom. There are all these minute regulations that each year the state will come into homes and audit those homes. That's how serious the state takes that. It doesn't matter that I passed a background check. It doesn't matter that the people that run my company passed a background check. Still, the state is constantly checking in to assure that the people that we're servicing are actually getting competent care. But for some reason, that shouldn't be the case when it comes to migrant children. Nope, we just simply run a background check on someone who volunteers to be a host to these migrant children. If they pass the background check, that's it. No need to check up on them any further. What's worse is currently, at least the government's saying, actually there still is a need to check up, so we're going to have hearings that you have to come to, and these sponsors for 300,000 children just aren't showing up. And IRI says, I'm fine with that. Now, we've had people testify in front of the Congress that there are mass amounts of children being sexually exploited. Let's assume for a second that there are people out there that want to do heinous things. Do you think every one of them would fail a criminal background check? If it was IRI's child, would he be comfortable just giving a criminal background check to someone that was going to be tasked with looking into his children and then saying, I'm never going to look in to make sure they're doing a good job? Oh, Anders says, tell them about paperwork and all this stuff. Yeah. Stream was blacked out the last times you watched Jubilee. Contemporary Compendium, super chat for $5. Close friend of mine used to work in Arizona CPS. She quit because she saw how poorly fosters were vetted, which ultimately led to abuse. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's tons of paperwork, billing, etc. that goes in to because there's government money coming our way. Just like these sponsors, there's government money coming to them. It is insane the amount of paperwork you have to do on a daily basis, on a monthly basis. But for some reason, the people that would like anytime, because again, the government's giving money to these sponsors. So anytime the government's giving money to anything, they absolutely should be doing checks to make sure that that money's being spent legitimately. The priority of when we want the government to check in is exponentially higher when we're talking about the people that are the most vulnerable, like children that are coming from overseas, that are being put with people many times that aren't even relatives. And these are the very people that IRI's like, I'm perfectly fine with that as long as they pass the background check.
Know them. You think it's just some random? You think I can go pick up a undocumented immigrant child right now?
No, but I do know that that has happened to tens of thousands of kids in this country.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So you think they're just being released to random people?
They're being released to people who claim that they are relatives, and in many cases they are not necessarily relatives.
How do you know that?
Because they are not checking in for their follow-up appointments.
Oh, because they're not checking in for the voluntary follow-up appointments. So you're assuming the worst. You're assuming they're probably being kidnapped and trafficked at this point.
I'm happy for you that you're assuming the best as to what happens with minor children.
I'm always going to assume the best about my fellow Americans. And of course, if these people are their sponsors and their background checks by these agencies, I'm going to assume the best. Unlike you, that's a weird thing to assume all this weird stuff.
No, actually, what's kind of weird to me is that you assume that anybody who picks up a kid without proper verification and background check doesn't check in for months at a time.
Proper verification and background check?
What do you know about the parents? What do you know about people who are picking them up? What do you know about the cousins?
I've read that these people go through background checks and they are sponsors, usually family members. You don't sound like you read anything about this. You just have some fantasy.
Now, again, it doesn't have to be family members. That's one. So there are children that are sent to people that aren't related in any way whatsoever. Second, it's very difficult to prove if they are family members. For example, a lot of the people that are coming to our border illegally have difficulty providing documents to show exactly where they were. In some cases, it totally makes sense. They're coming from countries that don't necessarily do a good job at providing those sorts of resources and those sorts of documents. But let's assume for a second that there's some nefarious person that wants to come in. They come in and they're like, I can't provide, documents that show I am exactly who I am. That's exactly the type of person that would take advantage of that situation. Similarly, if we don't really have a great way to verify who those people are crossing the border, how would you then know if someone is their family? So if I come across the border and you can't verify who I am, and then Ben Shapiro says, oh, I'm Rob's cousin, here's all of my documents, but you don't know who I am necessarily, so other than Ben Shapiro's word, how could you prove that they're family? Stank Jesus for $5 says, I took a $40K pay cut last year after I lost my job due to immigrants coming through staffing agencies working for pennies. Well, yeah, they don't care about that, though. But yeah, I agree. Lord of the Nerds Super Chat for $2 says, he called them my fellow Americans, caught in 4K. I think he's talking about the sponsors, but I hear what you're saying. Again, if you just, and the audience is chuckling and laughing like this is some good point. If you just think about this for half of a second, are you okay with foster parents refusing, the government sending checks to foster parents? And they're saying, okay, we've set up all these metrics to ensure that you have to comply with all these things. You have to be able to prove that you're having the school have education, certain level of education. They're going to school. You have to ensure that they're going to proper medical appointments. You have to show up to certain hearings, court hearings and such. These are the bare minimum for you to continue to receive these benefits to be a foster parent. That's what our government is set forth. A person that says, nah, I refuse to comply with any of that. IRI says, I trust that person is my fellow American. How dare you suggest there's a problem with that? That's insulting to my fellow Americans.
You made up about me being able to go pick up an undocumented child. Why don't you and I go try to get one later? We'll see what happens.
I have a question. Where are you possibly coming up with that, since I've actually said the opposite?
You want me to name the article? You can go Google it yourself. Maybe you'll learn something.
Ben's saying, I didn't say that. Where are you coming up with that? And IRI says, you could Google it.
Which article specifically are you talking about?
Ben, when you get home, go on Google and type in, how are undocumented migrants' children released and what is the process? You'll read all about it.
I can read all about it, and one of the things that I've read is that the immigration services in this country have not done proper follow-up.
Well, you read it on Gateway Pundit or
No,
what?
on Wall Street Journal, at the Department of Justice, in all of the legal claims by the federal government. Yes, this is in the New York Times. Okay,
So I just want to make sure we're on the same.
So now he deflects to, when you read that these children aren't properly being checked in on, it must have been the Gateway Pundit. He's like, no, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, the DHS has admitted this. It's just this condescension. Again, we're talking about children. He likes to stand on these empty platitudes. My fellow Americans are great people. We're talking about 300,000 children that at a bare minimum, there was minimal things that the host that they were being released to had to meet. These processes were put in place to try to ensure the safety of these children. For 300,000 of them, that process has not been followed. And IRI is admitting that at this point, the federal government doesn't know where they are. They know we dropped them off with this person. So we assume they're still with that person, but that's all we know. We said, here's the mandatory minimum that you need to do that we're comfortable that, okay, there's at least minimum metrics being met that we know about these children. These people have been unwilling to comply with that, but we're perfectly fine with that because they're our fellow Americans. So we're just assuming those children will be okay. Lord of the Nerds for $5 says, IRI's entire political career is crapping on fellow Americans, specifically conservatives. He certainly isn't thinking with the best of Ben. Naked liar. Yeah, I agree. So we'll finish up here.
Same page. 300,000 children are being exploited in America right now.
That is not the claim.
Okay,
the claim is that the federal government does not know where they are.
Oh.
That is the claim. And
So
and that is absolutely valid. Do you know where they are? Do you think the federal government knows where all of them are?
the federal government should be
I have a
tracking
question.
everybody?
I think that the federal government has a responsibility to release children who come across the border only to people for whom there is follow-up available. Yes, and if I find it very bizarre that you're totally fine with people signing off on handing over children to people who merely claim to be relatives without any follow-up whatsoever.
Why do you say merely claim? You don't know what that background check is.
Because usually you should have evidence that that is in fact the case.
How do you know it's not?
Why is the assumption that it is?
Your claim is that people are taking out kids like library books and not providing the proper identification.
It's not what he's saying. What he's saying is oftentimes what happens is that they are asked to provide follow-ups to prove further who they are, that they were people of these family, and they're not doing the bare minimum of showing up here. And it's also a red herring because IRI's conceded the fact, or I don't know how much it was brought up here, that we can see that oftentimes, well, there are many times that these children are released to people that aren't blood relatives. Again, how would you know if this kid doesn't have proper paperwork that someone is a blood relative? Now, I'm sure there's cases where they're able to prove it. But Ben's not making the necessarily best point here was like, it doesn't matter if they're blood relatives or not. Are you telling me that anyone who's a relative of someone shouldn't be, if they take custody of a child and the federal government says, well, here's the base level of compliance you need to do to ensure that we're satisfied that you actually are taking sufficient care of this child, and that parent or that relative refuses to comply with those bare minimum standards, that we should say, but that's okay because they're related? Of course not.
And background
your lack of concern about what happens to those kids when proper verification and follow-up is not done seems disquieting to me.
Because you guys create fantasy scenarios where things that aren't happening. Are there cases where some children are going to be exploited? Of course. There's tons of people in this country.
So
we're the third largest country in the world.
So what should we do to stop that?
Well, you sound very passionate about this. Maybe you should write your Congress member and say we should tighten up these laws and make it mandatory instead of voluntary.
In order to do that, one of the things you might want to do, close the border.
The border is closed, Ben.
No, it is certainly not.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
It is certainly not closed.
Do you think the border was closed under Trump?
No, I don't think it was fully closed under Trump.
Oh, so you say Trump failed at closing the border?
Yes.
How is this hard to understand? Yes, even Trump would admit that there was still a border crisis. Well, I don't know if Trump would admit, but yes, people like me and people like Ben Shapiro talked about the problems at the border even when Trump was there. No, clearly the border wasn't closed. IRI is saying the border is closed. That's fundamentally not true. And so when pushed on that, he says, was the border closed under Trump? Shapiro again says, no, it wasn't closed under Trump. There were still problems under Trump. But it's IRI's, he's just like, he assumes if you're criticizing Biden, then that means that you would be incapable of criticizing Trump. Because he assumes everyone is tribal like he is. So it has to, for him, it's Harris, Biden good all of the time, Trump bad all of the time. So you must be the inverse of that.
Okay.
Yes, Donald Trump should have done more to close the border.
Why would you want him back in there if he's going to fail again?
Because he did a better job than Joe Biden, who let in 6.5 million illegal immigrants.
Joe Biden has the exact same border encounters right now as Trump at the end of his administration.
I have a question.
If Trump was on pace to let in 900...
It's not true. It's not the exact same. It's still higher than the average under the Trump administration. And again, they're only doing that now because it's an election year. If IRI is correct that all it took was this executive order from Joe Biden to secure the border to a way that he feels is sufficient, then why is he okay with the fact that Joe Biden rescinded Trump's executive orders and then did nothing for 3.5 years if all it would have taken was the stroke of a pen to actually secure our border? And then to say, well, why would you be against electing the officials that went for that, like Harris, if the numbers are good right now? They're only good now because they realized they were losing that issue in an election year, so they pretended to care about it. We could see that Harris is suggesting that these people should be offered a path to citizenship, which shows that they would not take this seriously and would be interested in opening the border like they did for 3.5 years.
100,000, if that was the case, a year.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Why is it that after a president allows in, through pure executive order negligence, having walked back the executive orders that created the policies that you're now praying, I mean, if you want to call it purposeful, call it purposeful. They were, on day one, they reneged on Remain in Mexico. They changed the standards by which asylum was claimed.
Mexico's got to play. It takes two to tango. Mexico didn't want anything to do with Remain in Mexico.
Remain in Mexico was the American policy. It was Joe Biden who walked out on Remain in Mexico.
There's also a small number of people. It's like a couple tens of thousands of people.
The unprecedented level of illegal immigration is apparently totally fine with you under Joe Biden.
No, listen, we need more people in this country, Ben. There's no legal...
The unprecedented amount of illegal immigration is totally fine with you. And IRI says no, and then says, and we need more people. This entire debate has been IRI saying it's not happening and it's good that it's happening. He literally just did it there in back-to-back sentences. Apparently you're okay with the mass amount of people that came in. No, and we need more people.
Means for them to come in that are reasonable. So these people are forced to come in through the southern border because there's no other way.
There are hundreds of thousands of people who come into this country every year legally on visas.
Yes, and that process is difficult. We need a lot more people than hundreds of thousands.
So you're making a case for broadening legal immigration,
yes,
but you are not setting any standard or numbers by which we are supposed to adjudicate whether this is good or bad.
That's not my job. All I know is it's too difficult
so
right
you're not
now.
making an argument at all. You're making an argument that basically we should just legalize everybody who wants to come into the country.
Not at all. I'm fine with the number.
Hold on. You have not set a number. You have not set a standard. You have suggested you're utterly fine with what happens to minors if they are released to adults without proper evidence.
I have not.
You have suggested that there is no major problem with exploitation of children being trafficked over the border.
I'll go with Trump's number, 1 million a year, because that's what he was on pace to let in by the end of his administration.
Okay, so everything Ben Shapiro said there was true, as we've gone through with the child numbers. So now IRI just flippantly says, we're fine with letting in 1 million people a year. First off, it wasn't that that's what Trump was fine with. If you recall, Trump wanted a bunch of other more stringent measures that people like IRI and the Democrats were absolutely against. For example, they said the wall that Trump wanted was racist, and they led one of the largest government shutdowns in order to prevent money for that wall being spent. So it's clear that Trump wanted that number of illegals decreased massively. In fact, he probably wanted that number to be 0, right? So he says 1 million a year. Those what Trump wanted. That's not true. And secondly, that shows the flippancy of which he's talking. Do you think for a second that, okay, 1 million a year, that's what you want? That after that number came in and we said, that's it, the border's closed, now none of you are allowed across the border no matter what, get out of here. Do you think for a second that IRI would say, okay, I find that acceptable? Does anyone think that for a second? Of course not. They would say, that's inhumane. We have to leave these people. My God, they have no choice now. The system's too hard for them to get in illegally. Now they have no choice but to do so illegally.
75,000 a month equals 900,000.
Okay, thank you.
Very poor performance from IRI. I find it absolutely hilarious that the Democrats think that that was somehow an effective debate strategy or that he did well there. It was very poor. Not good at all. You could see that he constantly would move the goalpost every time he was pinned down on something. He feels good because a bunch of other people that are predisposed to being biased for him that are also not intellectually capable of keeping up with Ben Shapiro were snapping their fingers and clapping along when he was making points. But hardly does that lead to some sort of a debate win. All right. I'm going to leave you for a second. I got a call to make, so I'll be right back. So there you go. There's IRI's brilliant performance on the Jubilee. But he did fist pump when he won that race. Now, let's have a little more fun. I don't know how much longer I have to stream because, again, at any given moment, I'm going to have to leave here to help with some family stuff. Nothing super important. It's actually good news, but it's an interesting naughty term. I don't have Cash App to my knowledge. What I do have is PayPal. And so you can see the link to PayPal there. So if you want to donate through PayPal, I'm totally cool with that as well. But I understand it's difficult. Also, we'll leave it at that for now. So the Patreon I don't use very much, but PayPal, definitely, that's easy. So wow, Shipwrecked Demon's going to join me later tonight where I'm not streaming. Great. Yes, we understand the cowardice, Shipwrecked Demon. You've been here. You were so busy that you sat here chatting the whole time and didn't call in. And now you're like, oh, and now I got to leave when I said that I would call in. And I get it. We understand the cowardice. Thank you so much, Shipwrecked Demon. Not interested in seeing your blustering as someone who's too cowardice to call in. So thanks so much, though. Appreciate it. Thanks for the waste of time. Who would have thought? Predictable. Like, imagine if Achilles 7801 there, right? If Achilles is like, Rob, you're criticizing me. Do you want to talk? I said, yeah, 1 hour. And Achilles is like, fine, I can't stream later tonight, but if you want to do it in an hour from now, that sounds fine. And then I say, I could do it with you later tonight. And you're like, I just told you that I can't. Oh, well, there you go. I didn't run from the debate. Thanks, Shipwrecked Demon. You're fun to ignore. All right, let's have a little fun here. Who is this character? Why can't I see? Discord bugs the crap out of me. Because sometimes it just doesn't tell me who someone's name is. It just gives, I don't know, whatever. Okay, whatever. All right, let's do some of the debate from last night. So you can see the left's not bringing their best, or sadly, maybe they are. That might be more likely to be the truth. I think that performance of IRI there wasn't great, but I thought for those that missed or those that saw last night, let's hit up some of the debate we saw last night. I don't even know what to say. In one of the worst debate performances I've ever seen by this First Amender character last night. Me and my partner Josh wanted to talk about issues, how the record of Trump is better than the record of Harris when it comes to issues that affect Americans. We were both able to correctly predict that they wouldn't want to talk about the record. Instead, they would merely want to bloviate about Trump's a threat to democracy, this, that, and the other. And that's exactly what happened. But if you missed the debate, it's really a banger. It really is. You're not going to learn anything. And, well, I guess I'm saying stuff, but you're not going to learn anything from them, from our opponents. But it's, for humor value, I think that it's worth listening to. What I'm going to do is play you a portion of one of the opponents, the one who spoke the bulk of the time, probably 90% for our opposition. I'm going to play a portion of their opening for you here. This is this gentleman on the bottom right here. Let's hear their opening statement. Ready?
President Biden, that there were no wars, that mass deportation is somehow going to solve part of the 20 social profit.
All right. Thank you so much, Classy and Neurotic, for your opening statement. We'll head it over to First Amender. So just looking at the time right quick, you'll have 8.5 minutes on the floor. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Are you ready? Are you ready for this? I feel so good for the people that didn't see this. Like those that watched last night, you're going to be like, oh boy, I know it's coming. For those that haven't watched though, man, do I envy you, because to relive this moment again would be tremendous. So buckle up, baby. Here we go. Here comes one of the best opening statements. What you've missed is me and Josh, my partner there, giving a 12-minute opening statement going through the record of Donald Trump versus the record of Kamala Harris, and her basically being there during the Biden administration and saying she wouldn't have done anything different, and how Americans were far better off under Trump, talking about the ability to afford groceries, being on the precipice of wars that we see now, the border being more secure, etc. Classy, who's, Classy Neurotic just said, but January 6th, Trump said mean things, and he went through a list of mean things Trump said going back to 2016. And now we have this gentleman that's got 8.5 minutes for his opening statement, and let's hear what he brings to the table. You ready?
We walk headfirst into flames, and I do not see the people engulfed bother themselves with screaming. They simply smile with a red hat on, and only when it is too late do they regret their actions. And even some don't even do that, as their bodies remained a charred husk to be dragged away by the sycophants of an orange dictator. Must not have been a real supporter, as alarm bells echoed beyond the valleys. Yet it mattered not, for the sycophants cut their ears off years ago to maintain their blind devotion to the orange man. There I stood peering at a giant...
Now, I'm thinking at this point, like, is this a joke? Like, I thought maybe it was going to be like a 40-second poem and then he was going to get to arguments. No. Let's up the speed a little, just in case you think I'm kidding.
Giant screen, faded and covered in stains, audio caked with interference, as the splendor of the orange man had faded with every broadcast. Yet I remembered what he had said, and what was repeated and touted, porches lit in his name, brethren treated as common refuse, to not be trusted any longer, and the sycophants chided and jeered at my brothers around me. When Mexico sends its people, they are not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're bringing rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. June 16th, 2015, in his campaign announcement. You also had people who were very fine people on both sides, which was said in response. During the 2017 Unite the Right rally.
Let's skip ahead a little. So that's at 43 minutes. Let's skip ahead. Oh, I don't know. Surely this can't go on for that long. Let's skip ahead to 48 minutes. 5 minutes later.
Scarred in its democratic processes for years to come. It could never happen here, spoke my parents from Chile, who knew what coup d'etats looked like from memory. We have too many checks and balances of power to prevent this from happening, they said. He refused a peaceful transfer of power, but it mattered not, for the sycophants have cut their ears off, and they have walked into flames blindly smiling with a red hat on. The sycophants were including amongst the others under the sole condition, an unconditional demand for loyalty, and there they're handed a dagger to each one in stitches to close the wounds.
All right, let's skip ahead another few minutes here, shall we? You don't mind? I'd like to
cut off long ago. He scapegoated the minority, often marginalized group that amassed no more than 2% of the total population. By stoking the flames of xenophobia, he could play into the natural fears of others. There were those with a knife in their must not have been in ears cut off. The press is the enemy of the people, said the orange, screamed in unison. And they thought that they could not trust the media. Source, they shouted. And those with ears, I apologize. I would have continued, but God.
That's such an underrated line. 8.5 minutes. I apologize. I would have continued. I bet you would have. Holy shit. That's one of the funniest things I've ever been party to. Oh my good God. That's it, man. You could take my 8-minute intro and his, and that's basically sums up this election. One guy like, I understand people are struggling to afford groceries. There's problems at the border. There's problems with foreign policy. And the other person going, doth the orange man speaketh, and they cut off their ears. There you go. My counter poem, I guess I'll play that. I'll play how I responded. Yes, I came up with it on the fly, obviously. I clearly didn't know he was going to do that. So about halfway through, I knew when he kept saying, the very first thing I knew I was going to say when he kept saying they cut off their ears was like, dude, we're talking about people not being able to afford to eat. Maybe they cut off their ears in a desperate attempt for something to eat. And then I was like, oh yeah, I'll do a little poem myself. So yeah. I hope you enjoyed my poetry coming up here.
No, it's okay. We did reach the end of our time, so I do. I am sorry for cutting you off, but I thank you for respecting the timer there. So we are going to kick it over to the other side to respond to some of what they've just heard and try to get into an open discussion. So I will remind everybody once again, we've got several super chats already coming in. Thank you so much to everybody who's already put in there. Yeah, trying to jump in there. So I'll hand it on over to you.
Absolutely, Josh, if you don't mind. I'd like to respond. Now, I'll admit, though, to being inspired, I thought to talk about issues that affected Americans in a way such that the average person could understand. But I've been inspired to understand that prose is not the way to go in this debate. So if I may, with some impromptu poetry to respond to that great soliloquy that we just heard. And as they stood glistening skin, yellowing from lack of nutrition, no longer could they afford groceries, no longer could they recognize their communities. As crime ran rampant, as they were locked down as non-essential, as their First Amendment was stripped from within, they looked to the heavens. Where could they find sustenance? And then they saw the answer. They could eat the anger at the mean tweets. They could go to the argument of 2016. Therefore, sustenance is not worth What understanding that condemning a man for rhetoric as Hitler could be. January 6th would be their food, they yelled, and therefore they did cut off their ears. Not for lack of hearing, but because they must eat something and ears were better than nothing being offered. That was quite literally one of the most insane, hilarious, and absolutely asinine speeches that I think should be clipped and will be clipped to represent exactly what this election represents. Discussions about mean tweets and angry things that were said going as far as 2016, relitigating January 6th once more, completely doing what I called out would be done in our opening statements, as did Josh, that you would focus on the character of Donald Trump, that you would say that he is this unique threat, and you would completely ignore all substance as to how his policies were better for even the groups that you claim are marginalized. You said nothing at all, either of you, about the economy. You said nothing about foreign policy. You said nothing about immigration, or for that many, any other policies. You didn't even mention one thing of Kamala Harris. You are both indicative of the exact problem. You parrot the establishment talking points, so at least you have your ears for that, I guess, and you ignore the suffering that everyday Americans of all creeds, ethnicities, backgrounds, and religions are suffering from now, so that you can stand on your high horse and repeat these talking points that Trump is some unique danger. Talking points, by the way, that were repetitions, as Classy did, of 2016. We were told he would lock up all gay people. He would kick all brown people out of the country. And yet nothing. Most of those communities were doing remarkably better then than they were under the Harris-Biden administration.
All right, let's give them a chance.
Now, I was prepared to go through that whole debate. It just gets I didn't watch that, but it's clear that he's a little perturbed about how that went. As the debate goes on and we sort of skim some substance, you can see how bad he is. For example, right out of the gate, he talks about crime, and I'm talking about reasons that we shouldn't trust the FBI data over the National Crime Victimization Survey. But even if we do trust the FBI numbers, they adjusted them recently, and we can see that crime is actually up compared to 2021. And he's just like, no, that's not true. And I said, so you're saying the 2023 numbers are lower than the 2021? He says, yes. And it's just a lie. And he just keeps going with the lie. So I got a call, so I'll be right back. I'm probably going to end the stream shortly. I don't know. I might be back, so give me 1 second. plans have shifted so I could stick around a little longer. But yeah, I mean, it was just an incredibly terrible performance overall. And I think it's funny because there are still, even with this terrible performance that you saw, the cringiness, just the, absolute disaster that occurred, still you have people that think that they did well. Let's go to one part real quick. I'll probably stick around for another 20 minutes or so. One part real quick that I want to show you, referring to this crime data, because as a meta discussion, yes, me and Josh crushed the entire debate. It just is true. Classy Neurotic seems like a decent enough person that was interested in a discussion, but all he wanted to talk about was January 6th, Trump says mean things. Neither of them were capable of talking about substance. But there's something that happens in the meta level where someone's just either incredibly misunderstanding of what's going on, or they're just blatantly lying. And it sometimes becomes difficult. It's the old Shaggy defense, wasn't me. Where it's just like they'll just ignore a basic truth and hope that the audience goes along with it.
Media and from the Democrats, Congress,
Wall 2025 agenda. We'll make sure you've already heard help families. In addition, we'll actually talk about some actual that the FBI statistics show that crime is not rampant. It's down. Is it up?
Yes.
All right, let's focus on that. Let's hand it over to
let's
Rob.
go back and forth instead of from our opponents that the record of troopers also they were we were quiet. Well, you did that the economy
keep people on a
okay, the economy would crash under Donald Trump. Layers better for we're right. We don't have creation think differently about under Donald. The rest of us. Yes, we know that Democrat foot soldiers will engage in riots. What Clever gave an opening at the see the sir they were victim of. I'm just skipping ahead to this one answer. So
is crime up or down under Biden?
I just repeated. I'll repeat my answer. So first, we can see that the FBI manipulates the statistics, as we've already seen that.
So the FBI's bullshit, right?
So that's part of what I'm saying. We saw. Yes or no? Did the FBI recently change their number?
I can't
real quick, I answered your question. I answered your question.
Who do I go to?
What's that?
Who do I go to if I can't trust the FBI statistics?
Well, why don't you answer the yes/no question that I asked you, and then you answer the
yes or no question?
Okay, just 1 second. The first
right. The yes/no question that I asked you was: will you admit that the FBI just recently changed the numbers that showed that crime actually did increase in 2022?
All right.
What?
We'll let you.
Will you admit that the FBI just recently
FBI change the number?
So actually,
you see, he doesn't even know that. He literally just Googled FBI numbers, crime numbers. In fact, he literally just saw some probably fact check. He went to Snopes or something. That's it. He doesn't even know the bare minimum fact that the FBI recently adjusted their numbers. He doesn't. He's like, that's ridiculous. Why? How could they do that? Why would they do that? Right.
Why would they?
So go ahead.
Sort of the method in the crime actually go. It's up. It is down.
I believe the numbers. The recent change was the numbers went down in 2021 and then back up in 2022, and now we have 2023's, or maybe it was they went down in 2022 and up in 2023. But to answer First Amendment's question, go to the National Crime Victimization Survey. That's where you could go.
And I just want right now to run you.
What? You don't have to bring in your transphobia. You could just talk about the crime, right?
Well, I live in Chicago.
Perception that you don't.
You're in Chicago.
What we're saying, our argument is first off, you're wrong. We don't.
This part's
that's
I
in
live in
BS.
Chicago,
That's been fed to you.
And there is violence every weekend. There's 40 to 50 people.
Yeah, you're in Chicago. What? You're in a city.
So we're talking about you guys don't care about people's things they're concerned about, like crime. And his answer is, well, you're in Chicago. Of course there's crime. It's a city. Ugh. So bad. Right. We don't care about right. And what we're saying, our argument is first off, you're wrong. Your initial perception that you don't see crime is irrelevant. Polling shows that people feel that
but you
crime
don't even trust
is,
the
please,
statistics.
let me finish. Polling proves that people feel that crime is significant. Secondly, I gave you the best statistics, which is the National Crime Victimization Survey. You haven't touched it once. That shows that crime is up.
National Crime Victimization Survey. All I did was bring up the FBI crime statistics, which is a valid source. You said you can't trust it, right? Because it's establishment media. This is what I mean by you cut your ears off and you sew them shut so that way you don't have to hear the truth. You don't care about the truth. You're not interested.
You're exhibiting the very.
You're exhibiting Trump. Then you obviously think that that's a bad thing. But if it's in favor of Donald Trump, you think it's the truth.
You're exhibiting the exact behavior you're criticizing me. You gave a set of statistics, which I didn't just say it's mainstream media. I don't believe it. I gave specific reasons to question those statistics, I could give more. Meanwhile, I give you what I'm saying is a better indication of crime, which are people, not just the crimes that police have gone after, which is what the FBI is looking at, crimes that they've investigated, but actually people that have suffered from crime and that are victims. And the National Crime Victimization Survey actually shows that crime is up. Now, other reasons that we shouldn't prefer the FBI numbers, in addition to clearly, even if we say it's not corruption, their methodology is flawed enough that there are significant changes, so much so that in 2022, they initially said crime was down, and now we see that it was 4.5% up.
Yeah,
but also it relied, real quick,
your,
I'll finish. Real quick, please stop. Please stop sewing your ears shut and listen for a second, and maybe you'll understand something. But what we could also see is that these FBI numbers are reliant not just on a flawed methodology, but also in what local police tell them and the crimes that local police are willing to go after. For example, if you see in a place like LA where they stop trying to prosecute shoplifting, then all of a sudden those numbers won't show up on an FBI statistic sheet. So we can see in left-wing controlled cities all across to a crime spike. We could also see that Democrat policies, including those supported by police have been demoralizing
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just got a lot of and
to this 4%, it's still lower. And even on top of that, this
is the
revised
part I was
numbers
trying to
that
get
I'm
to.
pulling up, it looks like that while murder has decreased, but they revised the number. Literally just pulled it up in a Reuters
Okay,
article.
so then how many?
Line?
What was the number that we're at?
No, I'm just pulling this up, and I don't cut my ears off, kind of like.
Please,
That's fair. I didn't know that. So then what I
here's
do
the
is that I
important
Google
part.
and I
I
learn
think.
it, and then, sorry.
Okay, so what you've admitted,
let's carry on.
What you've admitted was you didn't even know that the FBI revised those statistics, which shows even
That's
if it
correct.
wasn't
I didn't.
intentional.
That's great.
Please,
Thank you for giving me new information.
Please. The way this works is don't cut your ears off. Listen to when another person is speaking. So you admitted that
All
they
right,
didn't know that
cutting their ears off. Let's just, like I say,
so
try not to cut each
admitted,
other off.
you admitted that you were unaware of this. You admit, at the very least, even if it's not intentional, that it proves that these FBI crime statistics are fallible because they have to readjust. And now you're saying, but I quickly Googled and they said hate crimes are up and everything else is down. My question is then how much are hate crimes up? You're like, I don't know. I just read a headline.
Yeah,
I don't really
have the
understand
exact
that.
numbers off the
Again,
top of my head.
I
What's wrong
repeat,
with
all
you?
of this is non-responsive to the flawed methodology that they stopped going after certain crimes. The fact that we can see the National Crime Victimization Survey continues to say things like assaults of a sexual nature, and it also doesn't really help your argument if those other types of crimes are going up. For example, relative to into an issue for that tails immigrate and
If Biden had done
It is.
crimes up from 2020.
It is. Let me ask you this: Is crime down?
From when? Now, he'll laugh at this, but when you say is crime down from when, that's actually the point. Is crime down today from yesterday? Maybe. Is crime down from last year to this year? Maybe. Is crime down from 2020 to now? Right? Those are all, when you say is crime down, the implication is you're saying there was a point that we're starting at, is crime lower than now? And I'm saying, is crime down from when? When are you saying? Let's hear his answer. 2021, no. Crime's up.
Yes, it
His answer is to laugh, and I say from 2021, no. Crime is not down.
is.
Crime's up from 2020.
It is down.
So you're telling me the FBI...
It's down, yes.
Real quick, I just want to get this clear. You're telling me that the revised FBI statistics, which you have access and you're looking at right now,
yes,
that the 2021 numbers, that 2023 is lower than 2021?
Yes.
You're wrong. Do you hear that? Now, that's the part that I wanted to hear. Does anyone have, real quick, like I'm literally asking people in the chat. I'm not crazy, right? Let's go back. I specifically said, are you saying that you're looking at the FBI numbers right now? Yep. And you're saying that the 2023 numbers are lower than the 2021 numbers? Yep. Isn't that what he just said? That the revised FBI statistics, which you have access and you're looking at right now,
yes,
that the 2021 numbers, that 2023 is lower than 2021?
Yes.
You're wrong. Okay, everybody got that, right? Okay? So when he said is crime down, I'm from when? Yeah, crime's down from 2020. Crime's up from 2021. Wrong.
Are they including the crime of...
I'm going to look up the FBI crime statistics, but it's country, tax, I'm sorry, right?
Yeah, Democrat-analyzed crimes, states between Now you don't even free and the most long and hard.
I
Josh,
don't know.
can
I don't know
ask
what
you
to say,
something?
but
Hold on, sorry.
So
I have
we
a-
don't have any numbers
I-
to support.
Either to the price.
Actually, I mean,
numbers. Look, I can answer that, but I would real quick like to answer. So I will get the exact specific numbers, but looking at the FBI's graph that they put out, we can see that the crime they listed was actually around 1.19 million in 2021. That number is about 1.21 million in 2023. You have lied. You have directly lied. The numbers show, the actual revised FBI numbers show that crime increased from 2021 to 2022, and it's increased from 2021 to 2023 as well. You have lied. You have misled people. You claim that MAGA is not interested in truth and people like me are not opening our ears and listening, and you are blatantly lying to the audience. I asked you specifically if you were saying that the numbers in 2023 were lower than 2021, and you repeatedly said yes. So one, the FBI statistics have been changed. Second, for the reasons I said, we should not look at that as the preferred metric because it only relies on crimes that police are trying to solve. Third, now, if you look at the numbers here, these numbers are from January 2023 to December 2023. That's the numbers he puts. Do you see that? I say, well, compared to 2021, when we look at 2023, crimes are higher. He says that's not true. I say, yes. I read the numbers directly from the FBI. He's like, nope. Then he provides a source that says, from January 2023 to December 2023, crimes are down. So that's year over year. What that's saying is in 2023, crimes are down compared to 2022. That wasn't the question. That wasn't the question at all. But watch how smug he is. We can see that the National Crime Victimization Survey actually shows that these things are not like Democrats, 3.5 committing crimes and were possible terrorists, such 2024. That bill was designed to do several things. First, it NGOs, border war of the Ukraine, which ICE that was all key orders Donald Trump.
the whole Ukraine thing is when Republicans think for not a Democrat, very conservative, should really did everything, and he's done who to. He doesn't care.
If really feel this right now, country them that not do some community or need to
Down crime is up in
Yeah, it is.
2023 as the so you're disputing the graph.
By statistics.
To answer, if
All
you
right,
would
but
like me
crime's
to
still
answer,
down.
if
That's
it,
with the revised statistics.
crime is not
Hold it
down,
up.
crime is up in
Yeah, it is.
2023 as the so you're disputing
down.
the graph that I put up from the FBI. You're disputing
It's
it.
literally down. I showed it for everybody to see. It's right there.
You
Again,
did
they
not
cut
bring up
their
the source.
ears off.
Bring
They
up the
will not
source.
hear it.
You're saying crime in general is down from
Literally, the
2023 to
CD,
2021. Bring up the source.
JS.gov. It's the FBI Crime Data Explorer. I literally pulled
Bring
it
up the source. Let
It's
me see
right
it again.
there.
Let me see it again.
All right, here we go.
I just want to be clear. What you're
Go ahead.
saying
I
is
want
that
you to show,
you-
right? I want you to tell me with a straight face, crime is up.
let me
Go ahead.
read. Let
Tell
me
me.
read what you
Tell me
have.
how crime
That
is up.
says that crime is down since what? When's
last
that
year.
from? It's down 3% since when?
Last year.
Since last year. Was last year
Yeah.
2021?
No.
So when I asked you from 2021,
You
has
think
crime gone
COVID
up?
might have something to do
Wait,
with
wait.
2021
Let me
crime
finish. Let me
statistics?
finish my question as you're trying to gaslight your audience. When
This is
I asked you
ridiculous.
specifically,
It's down.
When
I
I
need
asked
you
you,
to just
please
say
let me
it's
finish.
down.
When I
It's
asked, now do you see what just happened here? He knows he's wrong at this point. Yes, he just simply Google searched and found something that said crime was down from 2023 to or from 2022 to 2023, an argument that no one ever made. In fact, I admitted it with the graph that I was talking about and showed. I said if we look from 2021, originally the argument was crime's gone down every year. Once the FBI revised, what we saw was crime actually increased quite a lot from 2021 to 2022, and it's still higher in 2023 than it was in 2021. That's why I specifically said, are you saying that the crime numbers are lower in 2023 than 2021? He says yes. Then he smugly puts up this chart and says, see, crime's down. I said, when's it from? Well, from 2023 numbers to 2022. Right, so that's not 2021. And then he goes, do you think COVID had something to do with that? What? And then he proceeds to continue to interrupt over and over. He won't let me get the point out because he knows he's wrong.
down. We know it's down.
Please let me finish. Notice how he
Stop
filibusters.
cherry picking data.
Notice the
You need
attempt-
to
notice
say
how
that
he's-
it's down.
Notice
It's
how
down.
he's filibustering.
We know it's
All right,
down.
we're gonna give
What's
Rob.
happening?
We're gonna give Rob 10 seconds just to put a bow
10
on it, and then
seconds.
I'll hand it back.
Bow. Like he's blatantly
Well,
lying.
we
So
can't.
he changed. I said crime's up since
It's
2021.
down.
I'm clearly not
It's
getting my 10
down. I
seconds as he's
showed it.
going back, James, to the filibuster tactering, which I said that
It's
he would
not
do.
filibustering.
So I
I'm
asked
holding your feet to the
specifically, I'll
fire.
just
It's
talk. I
down.
assure you I could talk over you and louder than you, faster than you, more
I'm sure you
intelligently
could.
than you. So
It's
if
down.
the moderator is not going to allow me to talk without you interrupting me, then I'll talk over you. That's
Well,
no
I can
problem
start.
on my
I can start. Employing those mutes. If
All I'm
you're having
asking you is to
difficult-
just tell him, let me get my point out. So the point I was making, I asked specifically,
Get
are
your
you
point
saying
out.
that crime is down from
You're just
2021
going
according to the,
crazy.
he's again talking over me. I asked him specifically if crime was down from 2021 to 2023. He answered in the affirmative. Then he provides statistics that say that crime is down from 2022 to 2023. I
because you're
gave
not
the actual
cherry-picking
data that showed
statistics.
that crime is up. My chart, and I've never disputed that from 2022 to 2023 that there was a slight decrease. That is true. What I said was from 2021, the FBI numbers showed that it's
down
up.
even from
He
2021.
lied to his audience. He lied to all of us as the data
just
shows.
down
And then
overall.
when it, last thing, then when it's pointed out, he then says, well, do you think COVID had something to do with it? Because he knows he's
That's
wrong.
correct.
Will you
'Cause
admit,
crime goes
will
up when
you,
people all
I'll
of a
answer
sudden
a simple
don't have
yes, no will
basic
suffice.
necessities met.
A simple
Yes.
yes, no will suffice, and you could then expound on it if you
I
want.
just
Will
can't
you
stand
admit,
the lying.
Will you admit that crime is up in 2023 based on these numbers
I'm
compared
not
to
going to
2021?
abide by your cherry picking statistics.
is-
Crime is
All
down.
right, we've definitely hit a wall there.
Now, that's indicative of how this debate went and how so many debates with the left goes. Remember, I'm not even saying that we should prefer this particular set of FBI crime data. I'm giving the flaws in it. He's not saying, here's why we should prefer it. He just says, oh, this is all conspiracy theory. Then he says, there's no counter to this. Yeah, I gave the National Crime Victimization Survey. I gave reasons that the FBI statistics weren't the best to look at. I gave reasons why the National Crime Victimization Survey was better. He doesn't address any of those specific reasons. He says, oh, you've sewn your ears shut. And then even when we start to analyze the data that he says is preferable, he can't be honest about what the data shows. And what's frustrating when you're in debates like this, I hope I did a succinct job of trying to articulate how wrong he was, and he was. Again, let's see if I can bring this up. I should have saved this. Mm-hmm. One sec. I don't know where the chart is that I had. Here. Here's the official FBI numbers. Notice in 2021 where the crimes are at, just like I said, slightly below 1.2 million. Notice how they jump up in 2022 to about close to 1.26 million. And then notice how in 2023, you see that red bar? See how it's close to 1.22 million? And how that's higher than 1.2 million? See that? See? Crime's higher in 2023 than 2021. Now, First Amender is lying and saying, I'm looking at the stats right now. Yep, I'm looking at them. Yep, it's higher in 2021 than 2023. It's a lie. How do you deal with that? It's very difficult. It's one of the hardest things as someone who's trying to debate in good faith when you're literally looking at the same thing and one person is just blatantly lying. They just don't care. No, that's not true. It doesn't say that. Yes, it clearly does. Look, it clearly does. And that's the official numbers. This graph is a representation of the FBI's official numbers. No, it doesn't say that. No, it doesn't. Nope, it doesn't. Why do you need the link to Discord, John? I'm about to end. So why? Whoever's in Discord, I'm not going to get to you. I'm literally about to end the show. Whoever would like, I could put the link to Discord. That's fine. But it's probably not going to help in this particular. Is there a reason, John, that you need to provide the link to Discord? Oh. I'm not seeing anything that... Yeah, but John, why did you ask? Was there a specific reason that you asked? It looked that it was important for me to provide the link for something. Is there someone that's chatting that I'm not seeing that's saying I want the link to Discord? That's what I'm asking. So, but yeah, I'm not going to be able to do any debates at this point. I'll be wrapping up here soon. Anyways, to get back to the point that I'm talking about. Those are total crime statistics. And so then when called out on it, you see the strategy that he employs. Just blatantly lie and just interrupt constantly. To which point a moderator is going to be like, oh, okay, let's just move on. Landon Manwaring, thanks so much for $10, says, they say you're a gish galloper because they can't keep up with you and then assume you don't know what you're talking about because they don't understand. Keep it up. Thank you. I agree. But you see what happens. He muddies up the debate by just talking over me in an attempt that people can't hear what I'm saying and that the moderator will eventually say, let's just move on. Then he could say afterwards, see, I was right. Crime is down. And when you're having these debates, you're making some sort of assumptions. You're assuming that people aren't just blatantly lying, or at least for the sake of the conversation, you have to assume that. And you assume when they say something, you're making your argument based off that. So when they say, yes, crime is down from 2021 to 2023, and I'm like, definitively, that's what you're saying. You're looking at the data. Yes, that's what I'm saying. And then it turns out that's not the case. To then just default back to, but crime is down. Right, you could say that. You could say with statistics, crime is up or down at any given time. There is no time in any country in history, save one. There will eventually be one time that you would be able to say that was the highest time of crime ever, or that was the lowest time of crime ever in the history of the world. Save those two situations. There is no point in history in any country at any location that you could not say that crime is both up and down simultaneously. Because the terms up and down are comparative. So what are you comparing it to? Up from what? Down from what? And if it's not the all-time high or the all-time low, even if it is 0.00001% off of the all-time high, you could say crime is down. And we'd say, how's that possible? Crime's at near historic levels. But it's not historic. There was one time where it was higher. So we'll say crime is down. Or you could have just one crime that occurs in a country in a year, and you'd say crime is up. How? There was only one crime. Well, there was one time where there were 0 crimes, so crime is up. That's why you have to say, okay, when you say crime is up and crime is down, what are you talking about? 2021? Since 2021? Yes, crime is up. Yes, I believe the crimes are all-encompassing of all crimes. They do have subsections for the types of crimes they're talking about as well, but I think those FBI numbers would include attempted murder. John, the reason I asked, I don't know, sometimes that Discord link changes the way it's set up, so I don't know if that'll always be good, but yeah, there you go. But yeah, so you can see the frustration, and then when all else fails, just interrupt someone and be smug and hope that the moderator says, okay, it's time to move on. So that's what happened. All right, I'm going to end here today. So apologies, it was sort of a weird stream today. Apologies for that because it was early at a time that I don't normally do. And I didn't know if I was going to have to leave at a moment's notice. But this is it. This is all I could do today. The rest of my day is going to be dedicated to doing Halloween stuff with my family. So I then go into work Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Be there 24/7. I'm going to try to keep putting shorts up today. those days as well. I might be able to get in the occasional live stream if I'm able to clock out when I'm at work, but I can't guarantee it. However, after this coming Wednesday, I have taken the week off. I'm going to be singularly focused on the election. I'm going to be streaming pretty much every night, including a 24-hour live stream Saturday, November 2nd into Sunday, November 3rd. That's going to start Saturday at 8 a.m. We're going to have a lot of guests lined up for that. It's going to be a fantastic show. Even if there were 0 guests, I could talk for 24 hours, no problem. Also, a little secret, we turned the clocks back that night, so actually it's a 25-hour live stream. Yeah, how about that? 25 hours of me, baby. And then obviously I'll probably sleep a little Monday. Tuesday I'll be voting and trying to take people I know to go voting. Then we'll be streaming Tuesday night. So yes, I'm going to be busy until Wednesday, and then I'm going to hit the pavement and going to be putting a lot of content up. But remember, I'm trying to put those short form videos up on YouTube just about every day. Thanks so much to everyone that donates to me. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone who chats. I appreciate you all. I hope that you continue to watch my content. Give me a thumbs up if you like this in YouTube or whatever platform you're watching on. Look forward to talking to you all in the near future. And as always, have a good one.